Chapter 1300. Miao Demon Xianyue was most likely in Jasper Palace. That beautiful, noble, and powerful vixen had yet to marry Chualong. He wondered what they were up to. Is the nine-tailed fox queen beautiful? Li Qingshan suddenly asked Lu Chuanfeng. Lu Chuanfeng was still dumbstruck. He was completely speechless after hearing their conversation. This was a contest between the two most powerful legends in the 9 states for thousands of years. They fought for the world and decided the fate of the world. He did not even have the right to comment, much less participate. He only came back to his senses when Li Qingshan asked. He praised, "The most beautiful woman in the world. You've seen her before?" Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. This title was too exaggerated. There were many beauties in the world. Spring flowers and autumn moons each had their own merits. Gu Yenying could be called the most beautiful woman in the small world because she had the aura of a cultivator. She did not have the right in the 9 states, but he did not think there was any woman in the 9 states who could beat her. I haven't. Lu Chuanfeng rubbed his hands. But that's what everyone says. I see. Li Qingshan suddenly had the urge to kill his way into Jasper Palace and snatch the 9-tailed fox queen. He wanted to see Chualong's expression. However, this thought was fleeting. He did not lack that vixen. There was no point in doing something like this just to attack his enemy. He needed to improve his cultivation. As long as he was strong enough, he would not be afraid of any schemes. He would definitely turn Chualong's wedding upside down. He also had Deep Blue Fatty continue to devour rocks and soil. She did not stop even when facing off against Chualong. Deep Blue Fatty was not affected by the hostility of the world at all. She ate with gusto. She could swallow a small mountain with every bite, and she became more and more obedient to Li Qingshan. As the saying went, another's hero is my enemy. He was the enemy of the 9 states. He was also the hero of the small world. He provided a lot of resources for the small world. Many more islands appeared on the vast sea of the small world, and they continued to grow. If the entire 9 prefectures were to be swallowed, it would definitely form a new continent. Let the small world grow to the same level as the 9 states, or even higher. Li Qingshan waved his hand. Go to the South Sea. Ah! The 9 states have become a battlefield. It's too dangerous. All right. Lu Chuanfeng listened obediently. Zhang Xian cupped his fists and took his leave. If the world was really destroyed, then following in his footsteps was undoubtedly the only way to survive. Rumble. The earth shook violently, as if a giant beast that was tens of thousands of times larger than the void-devouring beast was awakening, letting out muffled roars. All the mountain peaks were shaking, and some were even directly torn apart and collapsed. What a terrifying power! Even the tremors of the ox demon wouldn't have such power. Li Qingshan couldn't help but sigh. The feeling was abnormally strong. He remembered reading the news in his previous life that a magnitude 8 earthquake was equivalent to the power of 400 nuclear bombs. Fortunately, the will of the world was boundless, and the so-called hostility was just a subconscious reaction. Otherwise, killing him would be a piece of cake. The earthquake was not a coincidence. The void-devouring beast had swallowed billions of tons of earth and rock. Not only had it destroyed the geological structure, but the entire crust had also become fragile, gradually unable to suppress the magma and flames deep underground. And this was only because the Green Province's crust was thick. If it were the Mist Province, it would have been like the end of the world with erupting volcanoes and flowing magma. Was this what it felt like to destroy the world? Li Qingshan closed his eyes. His smile faded away. He suddenly radiated with a terrifying aura that could destroy everything, condensing into a blackish-green statue behind him. It was blurry, terrifying, and sacred. The Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction showed signs of breaking through. Compared to the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine, this cultivation method was basically a stepchild. He had never cared too much about it, nor did he spend any time or effort on cultivating it. Ever since he no longer had to disguise his human identity, all cultivation methods were the same. It was the same for all cultivation methods. It was only because it could improve his overall strength that he persisted in changing cultivation methods. Actually, he had always found it strange. Cultivation methods often had exclusivity. It was not like the more cultivation methods one practiced, the more powerful they were. Instead, they interfered with one another. Every single transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic and divine had its own cultivation method. Even with that being the case, the various transformations interfered with one another. However, it had never rejected his various human cultivation methods, from the innate method of practicing qi in the beginning to the extreme emperor's record of world destruction now. It was like a natural blank space. He felt like there was a deep meaning behind it. He thought, now that I've reached the 4th layer with the ape demon's method of moonfishing, I can't break through again anytime soon. I can use this as a perfect opportunity to practice the extreme emperor's record of world destruction. The extreme emperor's record of world destruction had always been born in an age of destruction. It contained the will of great destruction and great destruction. Only gods had the right to come into contact with such a will. It was just like how Gongyuan was affected by Ruin's end. If cultivators used this power, they would definitely suffer from cultivation deviation in the end. And not everyone had the opportunity to experience such a will. Li Qingshan had only seen the remains of a destroyed world and comprehended it slightly. To be honest, this comprehension was very shallow. Seeing a corpse was completely different from seeing a scene of murder. But in that moment, he gained an even deeper and greater comprehension, which was to personally destroy a world, surpassing the creator of the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction. The Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction began to make a qualitative breakthrough. He vaguely understood that if he could push this cultivation method to the limit, its power would not be any weaker than any of its current transformations. If it were not for his fortuitous encounter in space, it would have been impossible for him to comprehend this. If it were not for the space-devouring beast, even 10 Li Qingshan would not be able to destroy a world. The legendary world of freedom wielded both creation and destruction. Unknowingly, Li Qingshan had also taken on this role, creating a miniature world as he destroyed the 9 provinces. The Extreme Emperor's destruction and the Extreme Emperor's restoration. Perhaps they've always been 2 sides of the same coin. Li Qingshan murmured to himself. The statue behind him became slightly clearer. The Chan Monastery of Devanaga. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the benevolent and plump face of a giant Buddha that had been chiseled out of a mountain. The worshipping monks were taken aback. Only then did they feel the mountains tremble and the bell ring. Why is there an earthquake in the Green Province? The dauntless monk walked out of the grand hall. Buddhist light condensed in his eyes, and he unleashed the eye of the heaven, gazing towards the source of the earthquake. He immediately saw the mountainous, all-devouring space-devouring beast, as well as Li Qingshan on the space-devouring beast. The dauntless monk shuddered. He cried out involuntarily, "The world of freedom." Others might not be able to recognize the blurry statue, but as an eminent monk of Buddhism, how could he not recognize it? This was a god with great abilities among Buddhism, standing at the apex of the 3,000 worlds, yet he persisted in opposing Buddhism, obstructing the Buddhist Dharma, and rebelling against Buddhism. As a result, he was also known as the World of Freedom Demon Lord. He was the greatest enemy of the Buddha who carried the red flag and opposed the red flag. Amitabha, just what sins has our Chan Monastery of Devanaga committed? Chapter 1301. The so-called enemies of Buddha did not mean destroying a few temples and killing a few monks. Only by desecrating the Buddhist Dharma and destroying the foundation of Buddhism would it count. It had nothing to do with strength or weakness. Therefore, the enemies of Buddha usually had a deep connection with Buddhism. Some of them were even practitioners of Buddhism. This was the case for the white-bone Bodhisattva and the Mahasvara. Perhaps it was precisely because of this that even though the Buddha had boundless divine powers, he was unable to destroy it. This only demonstrated just how rare the enemy of Buddha was, yet 2 had appeared consecutively now, and they were both disciples of the Chan Monastery of Devanaga. Even with the dauntless monk's mental fortitude, he basically wanted to cry. The Mahasvara was obviously a Buddhist deity, but not a single temple would worship his idol. Moreover, All those who worshipped him were condemned as heretics and had to find ways to ban them. Naturally, Li Qingshan didn't believe in the Mahasvara. The indigo divine statues behind him were similar to the Seven Treasures Buddhist king's incarnation of the Seven Treasures Buddhas. They weren't real deities descending to the mortal world, but they possessed great power. However, the Seven Treasures monk king had to cultivate and worship for hundreds of years before he was able to condense the Seven Treasures Buddha incarnation. He, on the other hand, relied entirely on his qi to sense and transform into a demon with a single thought. It was certain that no matter if it was the Extreme Emperor's records of world destruction or the Extreme Emperor's records of world destruction, this move did not exist. How could the despairing people of the apocalypse understand the true meaning of great destruction? In the end, they would only descend into madness. Anyone who had even a shred of reverence and faith in the great freedom heavenly demon master would not be able to display his might. After a long time, Li Qingshan opened his eyes and retracted his aura. The statue of a god dissipated, not knowing that he had also been labeled as the enemy of Buddha. As a result, when he arrived at the Chan monastery of Devanaga on the space-devouring beast and saw the dauntless monk angrily berate the enemy of the Buddha, he rubbed his head in confusion. "Monk, have you gone mad? Enemy of Buddha? Is little and okay? When did I become the enemy of Buddha? Is it contagious?" Li Qingshan even felt a little wronged. He had always respected Buddha, although he had killed monks and destroyed temples. Now, you want to destroy the world, but you can't slander me like this. The alarms in the temple rang and all the monks looked miserable as if a great disaster was about to befall them. Based on past experience, nothing good would come from the arrival of this person. The dauntless monk did not want to say anything more. He only felt like his heart had died. "If you enter the temple, I'll throw my life at you. Look at how ignorant you are. I won't listen to such words. Let's see what you have to fight me with." Li Qingshan had specially come to the Chan monastery of Devanaga, and that was with good intentions, yet he was actually turned away at the entrance. It was far too detestable. He crushed the entrance with a stomp and tried to force his way in. "Traitorous disciple. Don't try to be unreasonable." The unraging monk rushed over in a hurry, blocking in front of Li Qingshan. "I've already been expelled from the sect. I'm not even a layman disciple anymore." The unraging monk sighed. He was haggard, and his colossal body had thinned slightly too. Li Qingshan couldn't bear to see this. Forget it. There's nothing much to see in this monk temple anyway. I'm here for something important. Let's go. I'll treat you to a drink." The unraging monk grabbed his arm and took a step, arriving in a small town outside the mountain. The sky was hazy, and it began to drizzle. The town was deathly silent. Li Qingshan asked, "Little N?" The unraging monk shook his head. "The Hungry Ghost Realm." The tattered banner was soaked by the rain very soon. It hung down, and the two of them entered the small tavern that was filled with dust. Li Qingshan lifted up his bowl, and the unraging monk had already downed several bowls. He tasted it, but he discovered it was just water. Even without the Hungry Ghost Realm, this tavern wouldn't be able to continue operating. This is no longer just adding alcohol to the water. It doesn't even taste like alcohol at all. It's water in the first place. I've already given up on alcohol. "TSK, what are you acting like you're drinking water for?" Li Qingshan placed down his bowl and said sternly, "The Chan monastery of Devanaga can't remain in the Green province anymore." "Fo, what do you want?" Before the unraging monk could say anything, the dauntless monk's furious bellow rang out from outside, causing the entire room to fill with dust. "If you call me the foe of Buddha again, I'll really be the foe of Buddha this time." Li Qingshan stood up suddenly. Actually, he did not find the title of foe of Buddha to be anything special. It was just like how a cat was called a dog or an ox was called a horse. He would never be happy. "Senior brother, why do you say Qingshan is the foe of Buddha?" The unraging monk was very confused too. "I personally saw the Great Freedom's avatar behind him. The Great Freedom Demon Lord." The unraging monk was stunned and in disbelief. The Demon Lord's Kitagarbha was different from gods and Buddhas. Even those who worshipped the great freedom demon lord could not condense an avatar like that. What does great freedom have to do with me? Only then did Li Qingshan confirm the name of the avatar, but he did not revere it at all. It just happened to coincide with their paths, which triggered a celestial resonance. He had been labeled as the foe of Buddha just like that. That was far too unfair. However, he had overlooked something. If he coincided with the great freedom demon lord's path, what else could he be other than the foe of Buddha? Although he had become a monk halfway through, he was basically even more righteous than Little N. The dauntless monk pointed at Li Qingshan furiously. That's right. It's exactly this attitude that shows no respect at all. He's clearly the foe of Buddha. Li Qingshan was speechless. This was like someone who said they were not mentally ill, but they were definitely mentally ill. There was no way to discuss it. Whatever. If he's the foe of Buddha, then so be it. I won't stoop to your level. The Green Province is about to be finished. I'd advise you to move away. As if to prove his words, the ground shook again, and the water in the bowl rippled. The dauntless monk roared furiously, "It's you!" Li Qingshan shrugged. "It's me. The destruction of the world, and the lives are plunged into misery and suffering. Do you know what kind of sin this is? This is war. It's always the innocent and weak who suffer first. However, I wasn't the one who started this war." Li Qingshan remained calm. Since he had made up his mind, there was no need for him to pretend to be compassionate anymore. Entrusting the fate of his women and children to the benevolence of the enemy was not something a man should do. No matter how many innocents he slaughtered, no matter how many sins he shouldered, it would never change. The dauntless monk was rendered speechless from anger. The unraging monk opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he ended up sighing. Li Qingshan pointed at the bowl of water and said slowly, "The Buddha believes that a bowl of water contains 48,000 insects." This line of poetry was about how there were countless insects that were difficult to see with the naked eye in the water. Even drinking the water carried the sin of killing, which required chanting scriptures to expiate. Are all life equal, or are they not? Li Qingshan seemed like he was asking a question, but he also seemed like he was muttering to himself. If they were equal, then killing insects was no different from killing people. They were born with a body of heinous sin. If they were not equal, then the difference between mortals and immortals and Buddhas was probably even greater than the difference between insects and mortals. As a result, killing all life was as normal as drinking water. The dauntless monk and the unraging monk both possessed great wisdom, so they immediately understood what he was trying to say. They looked at one another, and there was only one word in their eyes. Enemies of the Buddha. This was questioning the Buddhist Dharma from the very foundation, slandering the Buddhist Dharma. Li Qingshan drank all the water in the bowl and smiled. "I'll call you master one more time. Our fate as master and disciple has come to an end. P.S. I bow and thank the new alliance leader of student NK_Glacier Burial. I hope you can keep up the good work and reach new heights." Ha! Chapter 1302. With a thump, Li Qingshan tore through the air and took off. The unraging monk stared at the empty bowl on the table and remained silent for a very long time. Once upon a time, he had hoped to change Li Qingshan, to lead him onto the orthodox path of Buddhism so that he could inherit his legacy. In a daze, so many years had passed. Only then did he discover that Li Qingshan had never changed. He had only become stronger and stronger. However, he was the unraging monk after all. He smiled in a self-deprecating manner. "Senior brother, you accept a foe of Buddha, and I accept a foe of Buddha. You can say, we're going through thick and thin together." The dauntless monk shot a vicious glance at him and also smiled bitterly. Both of them had their own beliefs. What Li Qingshan wanted to do definitely could not be tolerated by Buddhism, which added the title of foe of Buddha to him. Maintaining a master-disciple relationship like this would only hinder the unraging monk's cultivation, so he might as well just cut it off. Rumble! A bolt of lightning split the air and struck him. Li Qingshan could sense the hostility of the world grow stronger. Even cultivators would tremble in fear when faced with the obscure will of heaven, But when he recalled the situation in the miniature world, he became even more filled with lofty sentiments. Fighting against the heavens and pitting one's life against fate was an endless joy. He returned to Deep Blue's little fatty's back and continued devouring. He had already carved out a great valley outside the Chan monastery of Devanaga. Before long, this place would not just be affected by the aftershocks. It would probably become the epicenter of the quakes. Li Qingshan thought of something. He brought his fingers together like a sword and pointed at the cliff face in the distance. A horizontal stroke, a vertical stroke, a hook. In the end, he even drew a circle. After studying it carefully, he nodded in satisfaction and rode off on the space-devouring beast while laughing aloud. The dauntless monk and the unraging monk returned to the monastery. From afar, they saw a huge word that spanned several hundred meters across on the cliff face: demolish. There was even a twisted circle around the word demolish. The dauntless monk was utterly furious, but as he gazed at the great valley outside and sensed the earthquakes that became more and more frequent, he had already decided to listen to Li Qingshan's suggestion and leave the Green Province, a place of trouble. Devouring, digesting, and destroying. The space-devouring beast rampaged through the barren land. In this apocalypse that he personally created, Li Qingshan could sense the will of great destruction and great destruction even more deeply. His ultimate king's record of world destruction progressed with each passing day. Gong Yuan also said goodbye to him, returning to the ocean abyss to consolidate her gains from these past few days so that she could convert them into cultivation and reach the next level. They were not men and women of the mundane world. It was impossible for them to be together day and night. On the vast sea, white clouds and gray dogs, time always passed extremely quickly during cultivation. Li Qingshan suddenly had an idea. He felt a trace of uneasiness, so he opened his eyes and stood up, feeling a little puzzled. That was because that uneasiness did not originate from himself, but from another source. As a result, he used the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression. He calmed his heart and began to deduce. Spirit turtles were born with the ability to prophesy. After forming a world within their bodies, this ability increased as well. Before long, they grasped an opportunity. With a wave of his hand, he summoned a piece of the spirit turtle's profound shell. It was shrouded in mist, and countless sceneries flashed past, but they were indistinct and impossible to see clearly. As the saying went, the heavenly secrets were unfathomable. Even a true spirit turtle could not divine everything, let alone a dabbler like him. Without any information at all, it was very difficult for him to obtain any accurate results. Only when it concerned his own life or death would he be able to sense things more accurately. He calmed himself down and slowly swept his right hand across the mirror image. He parted the thick mist, and a beautiful face appeared. "Hai Tang." Li Qingshan gazed at the beautiful face. Not only had it not been corroded by time, but it was even more beautiful than before. A pair of eyes that resembled peach blossoms stared at him through the mirror. That was obviously impossible. It was impossible for her to see him. The mirror image was only a product of the heavenly secrets. However, the feeling was so strong that it was like they were separated by a layer of glass. Suddenly, he understood that she was thinking of him. Otherwise, he would not have felt this at all. Although many things had happened between them, their fate was not actually that deep. It was not like his relationship with Gu Yenying, where they fell in love at first sight. It was also not like his relationship with Han Qiongji, where they entered an engagement when they were still insignificant. Even Gong Yuan, whom he had met very late, could dual cultivate with. They had even fought side by side many times, going through trials of life and death. The reason why he could sense something this time was basically all because of her unrequited love and the red thread that connected them. Unlike in his memories, there was no bitterness in her expression. Instead, there was a sense of tranquility and indifference, so clear that it was almost transparent. She did not seem like a pitiful woman who was infatuated with love at all. Instead, she seemed like an enlightened monk. She did not speak of parting, did not speak of haggard, only of longing. Even he was moved. The mirror image rippled as well. Only when he composed himself in a hurry did the ripples settle down. With my current mental fortitude, I'm still focusing on the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, yet my mind has actually been shaken. That's unbelievable. Her love was so deep, to this extent. Is this what they mean by sincerity can move metal and rock? Even merfolk who were infatuated with love could not be so stubborn. It was not like she was a mortal woman, unable to live without a man. There was clearly a much vaster and higher path ahead of her, so why did she have to be trapped by love? Han Xiongji had once stated that she liked his courageous, diligent, and unfettered appearance. This was also the reason why he admired Gu Yening. This was the mainstream ideology of the cultivation community. Even if they were to become partners of cultivation, the path still came first. A woman like Begonia was truly an anomaly among cultivators. Although he claimed to have a harem, that was only because he wanted to break free from his inhibitions and pursue freedom. From a certain perspective, it was also for the path of the ape demon. It was impossible for him to really place all the women he knew in a palace. They all had their own paths and pursuits. And now that a great battle was imminent, cultivation still came first. Otherwise, if he was defeated, he would not even be able to keep his life, so what was the point of having a harem? Recently, he had basically devoted all of his attention to the Extreme Emperor's record of world destruction. He did not even have the time to control his clone, much less find women. Since he had sensed something now, how could he just stand by and do nothing? Li Qingshan unfurled his wings and took off into the air. He sensed slightly and knew she was in the west. Although he did not have a precise location, there was clearly a fortuitous encounter guiding him. He flew across the ocean and returned to the 9 provinces. He passed through the Mist Province and entered the Thunder Province. The terrain suddenly rose up, turning into a majestic plateau. Mountains rose and fell, covered in white snow. The clouds rose and fell, holy and tranquil. The scenery was pleasant. Li Qingshan sensed that the magnetic field here was abnormally chaotic. When the clouds accumulated to a certain level, they would trigger lightning and thunder, which was extraordinarily violent. Many of the lightning bolts did not descend from the sky, but rose up from the ground. They danced wildly like snakes, connecting the sky and the earth in a magnificent and glorious manner. I'm currently plagued by misfortune. Coming here is basically asking for a lightning strike. Hold on, don't tell me this place is also influenced by the will of the heavens, trying to put me in danger? Chapter 1303. The heavenly secrets were profound and unfathomable. They were clearly unconscious, yet they could trigger fortuitous encounters and lay down fatal traps. They were more powerful than any schemer. They could even fool the minds of cultivators, making them either foolish or insane, walking into death step by step without even knowing it. If it were not for the fact that Li Qingshan possessed the spirit turtle's bloodline, he probably would not have thought of something like that. I don't fear the will of the heavens, but the most important thing right now is to find Haitang. I might as well keep a low profile and avoid trouble like the spirit turtle. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and withdrew all of his demon qi. His face turned back to human. When he opened his eyes again, his scarlet pupils had turned black as well. His expression was tranquil and indifferent. It was not just his aura. Even his sense of existence had weakened. If he did not pay attention to it intentionally, he might even be overlooked. Wind surged and clouds surged in the sky. The clouds surged, bringing with them a torrential rain and thunder. Li Qingshan smiled and leapt up gently, merging with the torrential rain. Boom! A bolt of blue lightning passed by him and shattered a huge boulder. While the rubble was still flying through the air, another string of lightning fell, illuminating the surroundings. What a heavenly will! Li Qingshan swam through the pitch-black rain like a spirit turtle in the deep sea. Almost half of the lightning bolts were greeting him. Even if 10 great cultivators worked together, they would not be this powerful. This was the might of the world. However, not a single bolt of lightning could hit him. It was as if even the mysterious will of the heavens could not lock onto him right now, allowing him to move freely through the pool of lightning. What can the will of the heavens do to me? Li Qingshan smiled. A bolt of lightning beside him suddenly twisted and struck his face. He grinned. It did not hurt, but it was rather awkward. Fortunately, there was no one around. Just his current mental state was not the spirit turtle's. He had accidentally leaked his aura. When he passed through the thunderstorm and found that thread of fate, he headed into the depths of the Thunder Province. He passed through several thousand mountains and several hundred rivers before encountering a few more thunderstorms. Suddenly, he saw a glorious mountain city, like a torch rising in the darkness. It burned to the ends of the world. Li Qingshan's eyes lit up. She was there. The mountain city was more than 10,000 feet tall, and 3 characters were carved on the city gate, City of 10,000 Buddha. Such arrogance! Li Qingshan gazed around. The Buddha statues he had seen in the Chan monastery of Devanaga earlier were actually everywhere here. Apart from the pavilions, terraces, and palaces, the entire mountain city was filled with Buddha statues of various sizes. Not just 10,000, but hundreds of millions. Not even the Lingua Temple could compare to the dense Buddhist light that gathered in the mountain. But what is Haitang doing here? Could it be that she has converted to Buddhism? All right. I've just ascended to the throne of Buddha, and now I've come to a den of thieves. The city gate was open as if it was waiting for him. Who is it? A low shout came from the city gate. The other guards were also alarmed. They only relaxed when they saw that there was no one in front of the city gate. Who are you talking about? Don't make a fuss. Could it be that I'm seeing things? I clearly saw. That's enough. You must be seeing things. In this kind of weather, even cultivators would not casually go out. Besides, so what if there were people? Are they supposed to come to the city and wreak havoc? This is the city of myriad Buddhas of Shiliang. Coming in here is basically walking into a trap. Look at the sky. It's going to thunder again. Let's prepare to cultivate with the thunder. Before they knew it, the dark clouds had descended upon the city, drowning even the royal palace on the mountain. However, not a single drop of rain fell. It was as if something was brewing. A guard suddenly suppressed his voice. I heard that a foe of Buddha has appeared in the Green Province. She was originally the princess of the Chu Kingdom of the Green Province, but she's resurrected somehow. She's taken over the capital of the Scarlet Province and slaughtered everyone in the city. All the guards felt chills down their spines. A monster seemed to be lurking in the dark clouds, staring at them. The Thunder Province had always revered the Buddhist Dharma. Basically, everyone worshipped the Buddha. Even the king of Shiliang had been founded by monks. Did that not make him the greatest target of the foe of Buddha? Boom! The rumble of thunder gave everyone a fright. Returning to their senses, they all cursed the guard. Only when they changed the topic and talked about women did the terrifying atmosphere ease up. Hee, when do you think the prince will be able to bring a beauty home? I think it's going to be soon. The prince has reincarnated 7 times, gone through 3 heavenly tribulations, and is infatuated with Headmaster Chiu. Even a rock should be melted by now. High up in the mountain city, in an exquisite pavilion with a different style from other buildings, a woman was lying lazily in a tent. Her heart was throbbing inexplicably. Or rather, when that name was once again circulating in her ears, the throbbing never subsided. Do you still remember me? Maybe you don't. That's okay, as long as I remember you. She muttered to herself. A smile floated on her red lips. She was as beautiful as a flower. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Headmaster, that Prince Songyang is here again. I think he wrote a new love poem? Yes, I know. Ask him to wait. A moment later, the tent rose. The woman did not bother to dress up. She casually put on a long robe and walked out of the boudoir. The pavilion was filled with singing and dancing. The sound of music could only serve as a foil to the laughter. It was a noisy scene of the mortal world. As her figure appeared, the laughter suddenly quieted down. Everyone's eyes were attracted to her, regardless of gender or age. But the one with the brightest eyes was a monk. He was wearing a red monk robe. His hair was short and neat, but it was not shaved like the monks of the Middle Earth. It did not affect his handsome appearance at all. Instead, it gave him a solemn and holy temperament. The women in the pavilion looked at him with passionate eyes. The men were very respectful and bowed to him from afar. But he was unmoved. When the woman appeared, he immediately came forward, put his palms together and bowed. "Hai Tang, you are getting more and more beautiful." His eyes were sincere, without lust. He did not hide the admiration in his heart and did not care about other people's eyes. Begonia said, "Your Highness is too kind. I don't deserve it. May I know what brings you here?" "I wrote another poem for you," Begonia interrupted him. "Your Highness, thank you for your kind intentions, but you should know my origins. But you should know my background, and you should also know who my man is, right?" "I obviously know about Li Qingshan, but how can a heartless person like him be your man? What the hell? Even monks are trying to steal my woman, and they're acting like they're infatuated. And the onlookers are all reasonable. There are actually quite a few monks among them. Don't tell me the city of myriad Buddhas is actually the home of perverted monks?" Li Qingshan cursed inside. Ever since he arrived in the city, he had locked onto Begonia's presence. He happened to hear the disturbance. However, he did not know that the Buddhism of the Thunder Province was a tantric sect. Even monks were forbidden from marrying, which was why they could establish the kingdom of Xiliang. And it was similar to savage places like the Mist Province and the Shuang Province. The people here were very open and bold. Not only was public courtship not a bad thing, but it was even a good story. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1304. It's fine if you're an ordinary cultivator, but I'm half a Buddhist disciple, so I'm called Brother Buddha. Watch me use my supernatural power and protect the Dharma to destroy your lust nest. With a thought, the heavenly secret was sensed, and thunder roared. The blazing white lightning was like a divine dragon, passing through the sea of clouds and illuminating the corner of his mouth, revealing half of his fangs. The wind chimes on the eaves tinkled, and the rain fell on the bluestone street. In an instant, it was raining heavily, and the world was dark. Li Qingshan's killing intent was born, so he simply opened his chest and let the rain wash over him. It was already late at night, and there were not many people on the street. The heavy rain washed away everything, leaving him alone. There were Buddhist shrines and statues everywhere on both sides. There were also Vajra protectors, arhats exorcising demons, and all kinds of unknown gods and monsters. The style was very different from the temples in Qingzhou. There was a strange and inhuman feeling, as if they were all silently watching him. There was a terrifying ferocity in the flashing lightning. A white-haired old woman was chanting scriptures under the eaves when she suddenly saw a figure coming from the foot of the mountain. He walked very slowly, but in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of her. She could not help but widen her eyes. The person smiled at her, revealing his white teeth. She trembled, and the chill went deep into her bones. In the blink of an eye, the figure had disappeared, as if it was just an illusion. But that smile had been deeply imprinted in her heart, reminding her of all the glorious statues of demons and monsters she had seen, but none of them were as vivid as that ordinary human face. It was like a demon king walking out of a nightmare, resisting and subduing, laughing at the Dharma, and breaking the Buddhist kingdom. She turned the scriptures quickly, and her mouth kept chanting, unable to hide her fear. In the brightly lit building, everyone was watching attentively. They did not even have time to care about the rain and thunder. Anyway, they were already used to it. With the protection of the thunderous formation, no lightning would fall into the city, and it would not be as exciting as the scene in front of them. This Master Chiu actually said that she had a man. Obviously, she did not intend to accept Prince Zongyang's affection. It was really shocking. Prince Zongyang did not disappoint them. He immediately said the name of Li Qingshan. Not only was he not afraid, but he also showed his determination. He was indeed the monk of 7 lives of love. Begonia sighed softly. Since he had said it out loud, there was no longer any room for negotiation. Thunder Prefecture was no longer a suitable place to stay. He might as well say it out loud. Does the prince really have feelings for her? Prince Zongyang smiled. If Hai Tang doesn't believe me, you can ask everyone here. Ask everyone in the city. Even a 3-year-old child would know the name of the monk of 7 lifetimes of passion. The Great Wheel Temple of Laizhou worshipped the Saint King of Chakravarti. Their disciples did not enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. When their lifespan was about to come to an end, they would condense their psyche into a tiny bit of true spirit and place it into the body of a newborn, turning it into a spirit child. Although it was impossible to retain all the experience and memories. However, they were much stronger than ordinary cultivators. If one life was not enough, they would be reincarnated again. It was called little samsara. With this continuous accumulation, as long as they did not fall along the way, everyone had the chance to become a Buddha. These people were known as living Buddhas. After countless years of accumulation, the number of reincarnated living Buddhas in Thunder Province was simply innumerable. This was the true meaning of the city of myriad Buddhas. This Prince Tsongyang had cultivated for 7 lifetimes, and each of his lifetimes was filled with lingering experiences. Moreover, he was handsome and had a brilliant literary talent. He was the dream lover of all the women in Thunder Province. His love poems were sung everywhere, so he was known as the monk of 7 lifetimes of passion. Asking him if he had feelings was like asking a monk if he had Buddha in his heart. Many people jeered, if the prince was heartless, then there would be no more lovers in the world. Begonia said, I am not asking anyone else, I am only asking you. Prince Tsongyang was slightly moved and smiled warmly. Indeed, you are the woman who understands me the best. The feelings of a cultivator are naturally different from worldly feelings, but they are even better than worldly feelings. If you can become my partner, you will be the queen of Xiliang Kingdom in the future, and I swear that I will never marry another woman. These words made the people in the building gasp. The women were full of envy and unwillingness, but the men were moved by the power. Prince Tsongyang had reincarnated for 7 lifetimes. In his 6th lifetime, he even became the host of the Great Wheel Temple and could almost ascend to heaven. In his 7th lifetime, he chose a prince as his spirit child. Not only would he ascend to the throne, he would also continue to host the Great Wheel Temple. He would have unparalleled power and could be said to be the first person in Thunder Province. Begonia only needed to nod her head and she would be above everyone else. With the support of the Great Wheel Temple and the entire Xiliang Kingdom, it would not be difficult to go through the 3rd heaven's trial. It was like ascending to heaven in a single bound. Not to mention women, even men would not be able to refuse such conditions. Prince Tsongyang ignored the reactions of the people around him and stared at Begonia affectionately. Hai Teng, does this prove my feelings? Perhaps my feelings are not perfect, but I am confident that it is better than Li Qingshan's half-hearted feelings. I am afraid that he has already forgotten about you. Outside the building, there was a surge of people. Even if it was a storm, it could not stop the enthusiasm of the crowd. The building was completely surrounded. Li Qingshan quietly came to the outside of the building and hid in the crowd. When he heard this, he was furious. This bastard bald donkey. It's fine if he wants to poach me, but he also wants to step on me to ascend to the throne. Prince Tsongyang's conditions were indeed excellent, but he was not worried that Begonia would accept it. If she changed her mind so easily, then he would not have come to Lizhou at all. In the beginning, they would not have been so involved, and they would have missed each other in the vast sea of people. Yes, he may have forgotten about me. There have always been a lot of women around him, and it is true that he is half-hearted. No, maybe he has never valued love so much. Begonia mercilessly criticized Li Qingshan. He was simply a scumbag among scumbags. Everyone felt that leaving such a man was simply doing justice on behalf of heaven. Li Qingshan's face darkened, but he had to admit that she did not wrongly accuse him. He could hear the deep feelings in her words, so he listened quietly. A smile appeared on Prince Tsongyang's face. His persistence for a few years had finally paid off. A few years might be a long time for mortals, but for him who had reincarnation of the 7th reincarnation, it was nothing. There were not many female cultivators to begin with, and those who could reach such a cultivation level were even rarer. Moreover, she was born with beauty and peerless elegance. She also cultivated the bewitching technique, which further enhanced her beauty to the extreme. As long as he had her, he would not put ordinary women in his eyes. It would be of great benefit to his cultivation of the great happiness Dhyana. Tantric Buddhism was regarded as an outside path by other sects, And this great happiness Diana was close to the demonic path. Only those with great wisdom and perseverance could cultivate it. In the midst of love and desire, one would understand the Buddhist principle that sex is emptiness, emptiness is sex. In the end, one must transcend. But he felt that he had a clear conscience. This was also of great benefit to Begonia. If she could break free of sex and convert to Buddhism, it would be even more beneficial, and she would be his natural Taoist companion. Begonia finished in one breath, paused, and suddenly changed the topic. But what does this have to do with me? What does it have to do with you? Prince Songyang was stunned. Begonia said, "Why must you calculate the pros and cons, and why must there be a return? I am in love with him, but that is my own business. Don't tell me that if Buddha does not give you benefits, your Highness will not believe it?" Prince Songyang was sullen. "How can a mere evildoer be compared to Buddha? Why is your Highness confused? I am not talking about Li Qingshan, but love. In my heart, love is more important than Buddha. But even if Li Qingshan is wrong, he has never asked me for anything in return, and he does not owe me anything. Besides, he is very strong. Your Highness, I am grateful for your care all these years. I really do not want you to be involved in this. I will take my leave now." Begonia bowed and turned back to her room. Both inside and outside the building were silent. As people of Liezhou, nothing was more important than Buddha. They could not accept this statement, but they were moved. "Wait, where are you going?" Prince Songyang felt that he was losing something very important, and his heart was empty. "Naturally, I am going to find him." Begonia looked back and smiled without any regrets. Prince Songyang was even more reluctant and could not help but say, "He is the enemy of Xia Kingdom, the enemy of Renhuang. He will not live for long." "So what?" Begonia was surprised. She did not think that this was a big deal, but considering the thoughts of ordinary people, she thoughtfully said, "Well, that is why your Highness dares to be so persistent, not afraid of offending him. Why do you say this? I have already expressed my love to you a few years ago." Prince Songyang angrily said, but he was somewhat guilty. Because at that time, he first confirmed that Li Qingshan was exiled from 9 regions, but he did not expect him to come back. No one was willing to provoke a strong enemy. Qiu Haitang didn't pursue the matter further. "All right, don't be angry. If your Highness can accompany me and explain these words to him, even if I have wronged you, I will definitely apologize to you." "You are sending me to my death." How could Prince Songyang agree to that? Li Qingshan had slain the corpse emperor and destroyed the Lingua temple. Just how terrifying was his strength? Just how violent was his personality? Even the turtle dragon was unable to do anything to him for a moment. If he went to him and said that he liked his woman, wouldn't that be like eating arsenic? He was tired of living? Begonia smiled slightly. "I will plead for your Highness. He will not die. He is actually not as terrible as the rumors say. If I were you, I would definitely go even if I have to die. As long as I can make the one I love believe in my love and remember my face. So what if my soul is scattered and scattered?" Her body seemed to glow with invisible light, attracting everyone's eyes, but people could not look at her directly. There was a kind of inconceivable feeling. Mortals lightly talked about life and death, mostly because of a momentary emotion, and it was just a few decades of life. For cultivators, it was hundreds or thousands of years of freedom. Moreover, they would stay young, not be tortured by illness, and have the opportunity to become an immortal. If they were killed, their soul might scatter and they would not even have the chance to reincarnate. As a cultivator who pursued longevity, it was really shocking for her to say such words. Prince Songyang's complexion changed several times. This time, not only could he not get her, even the title of Monk of 7 Lives of Love would be greatly damaged. His wisdom, cultivation, and status were all much higher than hers, but in terms of the word love, he was far inferior. He felt as if he had been slapped in the face. Li Qingshan sighed in his heart, "Well, this woman is getting crazier and crazier. Previously, she was just a young girl infatuated with literature and art, but now she is almost a saint of love. But I like it." To be continued. Chapter 1305. The wind and rain were gloomy, the lights were dim, and the thunder stopped temporarily. Chiu Haitang raised her head slightly, giving off a dignified feeling. Prince Songyang sighed. Amitba, I understand, but I only have one request. Begonia smiled. Prince, please say it. Please don't put yourself in danger. I will do my best to protect you. Prince Songyang looked very sincere and did not give up because of her refusal. As long as she stayed in Thunder State, one day he would be able to touch her heart. Begonia kept smiling. Prince Song, thank you for your kindness, but this is my own path, and I have to walk it myself. Maybe you are a Nunda, but I am not a modern woman. Prince Songyang was stunned. This was the story that he had been thinking about, but he had never mentioned it to anyone. How did she know? Ananda was one of the 10 disciples of Buddha. His face was like a full moon, and his eyes were like lotus flowers. He was loved by the modern woman and tried to marry him, which almost made Ananda break the precepts. Later, he was enlightened by Buddha and became a monk. It could be said that everyone was happy. In his heart, the infatuated Begonia was similar to the modern woman, and he was certainly the venerable Ananda. Well, since this is your choice, how can I stop you? When you set off, please let me send you. Of course. In the crowd, Li Qingshan smiled and looked gentle, which was very different from when he went up the mountain. He thought, I wanted to destroy this sex den, but this monk doesn't seem to be a big evil person. It's normal for him to like a beauty. I am not so stingy, so I will let you go. It could be seen that the Buddha and the devil were only separated by a thought. Begonia's true love had indeed enlightened him and saved the city of Buddha from a great disaster. He was about to walk out of the crowd and hold her in his arms. Suddenly he felt 3 breaths approaching quickly. There were human cultivators, powerful monster kings, and a Buddhist monk king, and these 3 breaths were somewhat familiar. Hey, have my whereabouts been discovered? In the blink of an eye, 3 people were in front of the building. Headmaster Chiu, long time no see. The leader was a sinister and handsome young man. He wore a crown prince's dragon robe and was exceptionally eye-catching. He walked into the building, ignoring Li Qingshan who was in the crowd. Prince Si Qing. Begonia frowned slightly. She knew that Si Qing had a deep grievance with Li Qingshan. Back in the Rui Commandery of the Green Province, his subordinate Yi Dan had wanted to take her by force. In the end, he had died to Li Qingshan's hands. Long time no see. You are even more beautiful, no wonder Prince Songyang is so moved. Si Qing's every word was filled with malice. He was sent to Laizhou to make the Shi Liang kingdom completely surrender to the Xia kingdom. This seemed glorious, but in fact, it was something that only the last crown prince would do. For the past few days, he had been living in the prince's mansion of Shiliang on the top of the mountain. When he heard the noises in the city at night, he felt even more agitated. Until he heard the 3 unforgettable words, Li Qingshan. New and old hatred surged in his heart, and he could not hold it in any longer. It tore through the air. Your Highness, so you're acquainted with Haitang. Prince Songyang stepped forward and bowed. He stood in front of Si Qing. He had already investigated the various experiences of Begonia, so he naturally knew about the grievances and entanglements. Si Qing glanced at him. He knew that his identity was special, and his strength was not below his own. He was the key person in this mission, so it was not good to fall out with him. Junior brother Songyang, you are the monk king. How can you be so wild and come to this filthy place? A low voice that sounded like a great bell was heard, overshadowing the rolling thunder. The left master put his palms together and stood outside the building. It was obvious that he was unwilling to enter this filthy place. Si Qing was only the representative of the Xia kingdom, and the Shi Liang kingdom revered Buddhism. The left master, the supreme of Buddhism in the 9 states, was the core figure of the mission. Prince Songyang's ears were buzzing, as if he was bearing the weight of thousands of kilograms. He could only try his best to hold on, so how could he speak? As a Buddhist, the left master reprimanded him according to the Buddhist precepts. It was completely fair and square, and could not be refuted. Master, don't talk nonsense. Our sect is also a sect that has been passed down for thousands of years. How can you say that it's a filthy place? Begonia's face was filled with anger. Whether it was the big or small formula or the rouge mind dyeing method, they all needed to be honed in the mortal world. This was their cultivation method. Hee, it's a strong rouge horse. I really want to ride it. Prince Tsang, I didn't want to meddle in this matter, but since this woman said this name, I must fulfill your wish. If you don't succeed, I'm afraid I'll take it away from you. The Frost Wolf King crossed his arms and leaned against the door frame. He looked at Begonia from head to toe without hiding it. His tone was cold, and his hatred was even more obvious than Si Qing's. Li Qingshan made a trip to Shuangzhou. Not only did he help Gu Yenying take away the rock feather that he had been planning for many years, but he also beat him up and took away his Shuangzhou cauldron and the wolf totem, as well as a wolf fang necklace that looked like a sumaru ring. It was almost all of his savings. This deep hatred was like a mountain and a sea. The more barren a place was, the more powerful the demon clan was. It was the same in Thunder State. Other than the Shiliang Palace and the Big Wheel Temple, the demon clan was also a big force. The Frost Wolf King and the Thunder State Demon King were old acquaintances, so he was also in the envoy group. All three of them had a blood feud with Li Qingshan. Because of all kinds of coincidences, they came to the city of Buddha and heard the name Li Qingshan, which led to a disaster. Boom! A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating everyone's face. Everyone's expression changed. In the crowd, Li Qingshan was shocked. Don't tell me this is the legendary luxurious gift bag? Heavens, I thank your 8 generations of ancestors. The Frost Wolf King felt a little uneasy with his strong instinct. He carefully sensed it, but it seemed to be an illusion. Then he focused his eyes on Begonia. Based on his identity, it was not appropriate for him to take revenge like this. But since he encountered it, he would not let it go easily. Li Qingshan, no matter how strong you are, you can't protect your woman now. But the lightning in Thunder State is really fierce. Li Qingshan also felt the heaviness and terror of the will of heaven. If the spirit turtle did not sense it, he would not only have to face these 3 enemies, but also Prince Zongyang, the entire prince's mansion of Shiliang, and the Big Wheel Temple of Tantra if he wanted to take Qiu Haiteng away. At that time, when the mountain guarding formation was opened, the rolling thunder would strike down. At the same time, he had to protect Begonia. Even if he had unparalleled supernatural power, he would still be in danger of failing. This was the beauty of the spiritual turtle transformation. It was indeed the spiritual turtle suppresses the sea. But it was okay to be a spiritual turtle, but not a tortoise. Li Qingshan did not roar and step out of the crowd. Instead, he quietly squeezed out of the crowd and approached the defenseless left master. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1306. The torrential rain poured down. Li Qingshan was like a tiger in the forest, creeping forward silently. The left imperial preceptor's body glowed with a faint golden light, faintly turning into a golden bell that repelled the rain 3 feet away. Prince Zongyang was suppressed by the aura and didn't know what to do. The arrival of the Taizu Emperor meant that the Thunder State had to surrender. He couldn't deal with the 3 of them, be it in terms of status or strength. Even if he could do anything, no one would offend the Skyfrost Wolf King, Si Qing Crown Prince, and the great Xia dynasty behind them for a woman. Begonia's face was as calm as water, but she was fearless. She looked at the red ring on her wrist. Was everything really destined? At this moment, Li Qingshan walked out of the crowd. The left imperial preceptor suddenly shivered. A chill ran down his spine and straight to his head. Prince Zongyang was stunned for a moment as he looked at the man walking out of the rain. He looked like an ordinary drop of water that would melt into the rain at any time. He had a strange feeling that if he didn't focus on him, he would completely ignore his existence. Begonia also noticed the man walking out of the crowd and couldn't help but be stunned. Her peach blossom eyes were immediately covered with a layer of mist, becoming more and more misty. Her red lips moved as if she had thousands of words to say. A majestic bolt of lightning struck the building. The lightning tore through the darkness and was as bright as day. Boom! The thunder roared and the earth shook. The left imperial preceptor turned around and asked, "You are?" "Damn you!" Li Qingshan threw a punch. The left imperial preceptor's vision darkened. The iron fist filled his vision and blocked the heaven and earth. It was as if a mountain was pressing down on him. It was difficult to dodge and impossible to resist. "Demon, how dare you!" With a roar, layers of golden light burst out from his body. Like an endless tide on the coastline, he instantly pushed his 1,000-year cultivation to the extreme. The big red embroidered golden kasaya on his body suddenly swelled like an indestructible seawall. It was the treasure of the Lingua Temple. The iron fist broke through the layers of golden light. As soon as it came into contact with the kasaya, it immediately shattered like a butterfly and gently imprinted on the left imperial preceptor's back. Li Qingshan retracted his fist and ignored him. He threw his head back and let out a long howl. Demonic chi soared into the sky, scattering the rain and tearing the dark clouds apart as he pounced toward the Skyfrost Wolf King. His eyes turned crimson like a tiger. Li Qingshan. The Skyfrost Wolf King had just reacted to the situation. When he met those crimson eyes, he felt as if he had fallen into a nightmare. His mind surged and his aura was seized. He was unable to control himself. Why was he here? In an instant, he felt as if he had returned to thousands of years ago, when he was still a wild wolf. Facing a ferocious tiger on the hunt, he was just the unlucky prey. He couldn't help but want to retreat. "I can't retreat. If I take even half a step back today, I will definitely die." He bared his fangs and howled as he pounced on Li Qingshan. It emitted a chilling aura. Everything was covered in a layer of white frost. Wolf and tiger, frost and fire, fangs and claws. The two monster kings were like two wild beasts pouncing on each other. The tiger stripes formed a king character on Li Qingshan's body. He unleashed the tiger demon's fury, unleashing a violent aura that dispersed the layers of frost. As a acquired demon, he unleashed a will that could destroy everything. Even a lion would use its full strength when hunting a rabbit. A thought suddenly appeared in the Skyfrost Wolf King's mind. "I've lost." They had not even truly clashed, but their wills had already clashed countless times, defeating him countless times until he was completely subdued. This was no longer a clash between two ferocious beasts. Instead, it was an unlucky prey facing a terrifying predator. Even the thought of resisting had been crushed. With his mind stolen, his aura scattered, and Li Qingshan reached out and collapsed. He grabbed the Skyfrost Wolf King's neck with his left hand and plunged his right into his chest. He dug out a frosty white demon core and suppressed it with the spirit turtle. In just a single exchange, the renowned 10-demon king, the Skyfrost Wolf King, had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Li Qingshan. Let alone escape, he could not even detonate his demon core. It was truly a fate worse than death. The Skyfrost Wolf King was filled with fear. Impossible! How can my will, which has been tempered by hardship, be so fragile? I can't even defeat a guy who's not even a fraction of his age. As if he could hear his thoughts, Li Qingshan tossed him onto the ground and stepped on him. He sneered. "That's because you're not a wolf. You're just a dog. Even that piece of trash over there is more of a wolf than you are." Si Qing, who had been referred to as trash, had the weakest cultivation and the slowest reactions. He only moved when Li Qingshan clashed with the Skyfrost Wolf King. He did not charge towards Li Qingshan, nor did he flee. Instead, he lunged towards Begonia. Only by capturing her as a hostage would he have a chance at survival. Begonia was only at the second heavenly tribulation. She was definitely not his opponent. "Assimilate!" Li Qingshan spread his fingers and bellowed. Si Qing froze in the air, completely immobilized like an insect in amber. Begonia's beautiful face was already very close to him, but she couldn't get any closer. She made up her mind and detonated her nascent soul. "Li Qingshan, I'll kill this woman even if I have to die. I'll make you regret it for the rest of your life. Destroy." Li Qingshan clenched his fist, and the air trembled. Si Qing was pulverized, and even his nascent soul was completely destroyed. Even Gong Yuan had to admit that she wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack from Li Qingshan. With such a huge difference in power, it was impossible for him to die with her. The lightning falling from the sky was blocked by the formation of the city of Buddha. Everyone inside and outside the building felt as if the lightning had exploded above their heads, and they all fell to the ground. In an instant, Li Qingshan had blasted the state teacher, defeated the Wolf King, and killed Si Qing. The sound of thunder lingered in the air, but it hadn't completely disappeared yet. The Skyfrost Wolf King knew that his life was in danger, and he roared with indignation, "Li Qingshan, kill me if you want. How dare you humiliate me?" Humiliate you? Ha, I'm not as senseless as you. Wolves and dogs are the same family, and their bloodlines are the same. They are wolves that run in the wilderness, and dogs that are domesticated and watch over people's homes. I've seen many monster kings, but it's rare to see someone as stupid and useless as you. If it weren't for the fact that you think I can't do anything to you just because you have the Chua dragon, how would you dare to bark here? Li Qingshan's words were sharp, and he stomped hard on the Wolf King. The Skyfrost Wolf King spat out a mouthful of blood, and he could no longer maintain his human form. He reverted to his original form and lay on the ground like a dead dog. Foe of Buddha, despicable. The left imperial preceptor's face was as pale as paper. He stood outside the building with his palms together, and the torrential rain poured down on him. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth, and it was immediately washed away by the rain. Ball donkey, this is how you plotted against my little end, isn't it? Do you know the cycle of karma and retribution now? As a senior monk of the Buddhist sect, how could you watch these two pieces of trash bully an innocent girl? Not only did you not stop them, you even helped them. I only wish I could punch you a few more times. After punching the left imperial preceptor once, Li Qingshan no longer paid him any attention. He only treated the man as a dead man. The power of this punch was a combination of several divine arts and the 9 heaven life soil. It was far more terrifying than the ape demon annihilation technique. The left imperial preceptor's body trembled with rage and hatred. A crack climbed up his bald head, and his body crumbled like a clay statue. Floating astronomy. Chapter 1307. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account, Kdred, and add me to support The Legend of the Great Sage. On the Dragonhead Mountain, in the royal palace of Grand Xia, Si Qing's life lamp was suddenly extinguished. Chua Long was alarmed and walked out of the hall, gazing at the starry sky with a solemn expression. Although he couldn't monitor the faraway Thunder Province, he could clearly sense the destruction of the diplomatic mission. Si Qing was several generations away from him and didn't have much of a relationship with him, but he was still a core member of the Great Xia dynasty. The Skyfrost Wolf King had followed him for many years and had always been loyal. No one could compare to him. The left imperial advisor was the head of the Buddhist sections. Not only was he the core fighting force of the Great Xia, but he was also related to the layout of the human realm. The murderer was certain. Apart from that person, who else in the world could kill them? Who would dare to kill them? Immediately, an uncontrollable rage rose in him as he muttered that name, Li Qingshan. Suddenly, his heart trembled and he raised his head, gazing into the depths of the sky. He caressed the Dragon Province cauldron in his hand and felt the immense and indescribable will of the world. Is it the will of the heavens? Otherwise, it would be too much of a coincidence. The diplomatic mission to Thunder Province wasn't a difficult mission, and it would only take 2 or 3 days at most. How could he have met Li Qingshan? As far as he knew, Li Qingshan had always been cultivating in the South Sea and couldn't have known about this diplomatic mission. Even if he knew, he wouldn't have stopped his cultivation because he didn't care about the left imperial advisor and the others. Chua Long took a deep breath and calmed the anger and hatred in his heart. With my cultivation, I shouldn't have such a strong emotional reaction. He understood that as long as they were in a world, they would be bound and influenced by all sorts of tangible and intangible things. Even though he was bound and influenced by all kinds of tangible and intangible restrictions, he was no exception. The heavens wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife, causing him and Li Qingshan to form an irreconcilable enmity. The heavens will have to submit to my will sooner or later. But this is good. The heavens are on my side. If I can kill that Li Qingshan, I will be blessed by the heavens and the speed of refining the 9 provinces will be greatly increased. Li Qingshan, since you dare to stay, don't ever think of leaving Jiuzhou again. With lofty ambitions and restrained killing intent, he smashed the railing and cracked it. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of miles away, in the 1000 Buddha city of Thunder Province, wisps of golden light flowed out from the cracks on the left advisor's body. It circulated and dissipated in midair, dyeing half of the mountain city golden. Countless residents knelt on the ground, kowtowing endlessly. They thought that this was the manifestation of the Buddha, but they had no idea that this was the end of a generation of monk kings. Li Qingshan extended his hand and fished out a shiny, golden saraira as well as a sumaru ring. As the abbot of the Lingua Temple, there must be a lot of good things inside. Then he collected the Skyfrost Wolf King and Si Ching's sumaru rings with a wave of his hand. Actually, this kind of harvest was nothing to him now. But kill your enemies and take everything they have. It was always a happy thing. The left imperial tutor's strength was the strongest, not to mention his temperament and will. As a religious fanatic, he was not someone the Skyfrost Wolf King could compare to. At least, he would not be defeated. If he unleashed his various Buddhist treasures and secret techniques, even if Li Qingshan wanted to kill him with a single punch, it would not be that easy. However, Li Qingshan did not fight with him. Instead, he launched a surprise attack. He punched him directly in order to take revenge for what he did to him. The physique of a human cultivator was already very difficult to compare with that of a demon. Even the zombie emperor, who had a strong physique, was smashed by Li Qingshan with one punch. Now that his cultivation had improved, he was many times stronger than before. Naturally, it was not something the left imperial tutor could withstand. Heaven's will is only SSS. Li Qingshan pointed his middle finger at the sky. Rumble. Thunder rumbled continuously, and the world was as bright as day. The cloud mountain turned into a sea of thunder and surged toward the 1000 Buddha city, as if it was going to crush the mountain. At the top of the mountain, the king of Shiliang Palace was shocked. He had been in thunder state for so many years, but he had never seen such a violent thunderstorm. Even the mountain guarding formation was shaken. It blocked the thunderstorm and gathered and absorbed it. The Xia ambassadors died here. How am I going to explain this? A thought flashed through his mind. My thunderous lion formation can borrow the power of the thunder. With such a favorable time and place, I wonder if I can? He glanced down the mountain and met a pair of red eyes. He was shocked and retracted his gaze, pretending that he did not see anything. He sent a telepathic message to Prince Songyang. My son, Li Qingshan, is not to be underestimated. Other than Chualong, no one in the world can defeat him. Be careful and do not make him your enemy. He had already made up his mind to not get involved in this war. Although remaining neutral would not be welcomed by both sides, joining either side would risk the destruction of the country. All the meticulous and ingenious plans had a problem. If any part went wrong, it would lead to the collapse of the whole plan. Prince Songyang was such a key part. When Li Qingshan was fighting with the Frost Wolf King, he instinctively wanted to help. However, in the blink of an eye, the Frost Wolf King was defeated, the Crown Prince of Si Ching was killed, and the left master of Imperial Tutor fell. He was so shocked that he immediately gave up on the idea. He broke out in a cold sweat and thought, this Li Qingshan is really violent. If I were to take action, I would probably be a dead man by now. And I would also make a great enemy for the Big Wheel Temple and the Shiliang Kingdom. After listening to the king of Shiliang's words, he thought, oh no, I don't know if he heard what I said just now. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, but none of them dared to make an enemy of Li Qingshan. He also had no time to think about Begonia. After all, compared to his personal feelings, the survival of the Shiliang Kingdom and the Big Wheel Temple was more important. In fact, he even regretted provoking her. Fortunately, I have not been rude all these years. I only hope that she will put in a good word for me. Haitang, I saved you again. How are you going to thank me? Li Qingshan smiled and looked at Begonia, who was on the stairs. He also deeply felt the changes in her. This peach blossom-like woman was more beautiful and blooming. Her figure was still so good, but she had hidden her charm deep. You are the one who caused trouble. Why should I thank you? Begonia took a deep breath and tried hard to suppress the surging feelings in her heart. Her breasts rose and fell with it. It was thrilling. However, outside the building, except for Li Qingshan, no other pair of eyes dared to stay on her. They all lowered their heads. In front of this fierce tiger, they were as timid and docile as a flock of sheep. Prince Songyang's heart was sour. Although her voice was cold, it no longer had the feeling of being 1,000 miles away. Instead, there was a hint of coquettishness. This was a feeling that he had never felt before. A shadow shrouded him. Li Qingshan stood in front of him and patted his shoulder. Hey, you seem to have said a lot of bad things about me just now. Prince Songyang's heart trembled. He really heard it. Under the gaze of that pair of red eyes, how could he speak? Only then did he know the great horror between life and death. My Legend of the Great Sage will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Now open WeChat, click on the plus sign on the top right, add friends, search for the public account Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up. To be continued. Chapter 1308. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the WeChat account Kdred and add me to give more support to the Legend of the Great Sage. After 7 reincarnations, he thought that he was indifferent to life and death, but at this moment, he realized that he wasn't so carefree. An uncontrollable sense of shame caused his face to turn red. He raised his head and looked straight at Li Qingshan. Yes, those are my heartfelt words. Even if you kill me, it won't change my mind. I didn't expect you to have some courage. Li Qingshan was a little surprised. He looked deeply into his eyes and released the will of great destruction. It was as if the great carefree heavenly demon was at the top of the world of lust, looking down on all living beings and laughing at the self-righteous persistence of all cultivators. Prince Songyang's body trembled. He bit his lips until blood flowed out, and then he cried like a child. Accompanied by a fragrant wind, Begonia came up and grabbed Li Qingshan's arm. Hey, don't scare people, he didn't say anything wrong. Prince Song, are you okay? Li Qingshan laughed and admitted, that's true. He said meaningfully, but it seems that I don't need to kill him, he changed his mind. Prince Songyang's face was gloomy, and his aura was extremely weak. He directly fell by a large realm, and his expression was abnormally sad. The great joy Zen that he cultivated for 7 reincarnations was broken. This was more painful than killing him. Begonia said, how can you be like this? He has been helping me all these years, but he only said a few bad words about you. Li Qingshan gently stroked her angry beautiful face. Sure enough, she was happy and angry at the same time. I'm doing him a favor. I can be considered half a Buddhist. This kid doesn't even know that he has embarked on the evil path. He looks free and easy, but he is actually frivolous and self-righteous. If he meets a powerful opponent, I'm afraid he will be easily killed like the Skyfrost Wolf King. Even if he is lucky and doesn't meet an opponent, he will fall deeper and deeper. In fact, he wasn't so kind, but when he heard him say, even if you kill me, it won't change my mind, it was like watching a proud child say, I'm not afraid of death, so he couldn't help but give it a try. In the end, he was indeed bragging. The child said that he was not afraid of death, but he did not understand what death meant. If no one had taught him, he might never have understood how it felt to die on the streets for such a small matter. Even in death, he thought that he was not afraid of death. Suddenly, Meng Qi began to understand the feelings of the great freedom heavenly demon lord. There were too many Buddhists who liked to talk big, such as 5 skandhas are all empty, and deliver all living beings from suffering. There were too many narcissistic self-deceptions that could be seen through with just a finger. It was an instinctive reaction. Qiu Haitang was skeptical. Really? Li Qingshan smiled but didn't say anything. He turned around and shouted, Monk, let me ask you again. Can I change your mind? Prince Songyang said dejectedly, yes. Li Qingshan laughed. That's right. Stroking his chin, he sized him up. I don't know what technique you practice, but it's rare to see someone so fake and weak. Generally speaking, the will of the Buddhist sects was relatively firm. He paid great attention to the cultivation of the mind. If it were the dauntless monk, even if he felt fear, the dauntless monk would not be able to do anything. He also had to shout, "Enemy of Buddha." He had only obtained a trace of the Great Freedom Heavenly Demon Lord's aura, not the real Great Freedom Heavenly Demon Lord. How could he break someone's technique so easily? Against the Skyfrost Wolf King, he mainly used his strength to crush it. Otherwise, even if he called him old dog 100 times, he would still bare his teeth at him. He would have to turn him into a dead dog. Prince Songyang recalled the path he had walked and couldn't help but sweat profusely. Actually, Tantric Buddhism emphasized asceticism the most. There were very few who practiced the Great Joy Zen because it was too easy to go berserk. Only those with great wisdom and determination could cultivate, and he believed that he was such a person with great wisdom and determination. He had never thought much of those ascetics. Now he realized how foolish he was. He enjoyed the pleasures of the world while thinking that he was untainted by dust. He was really possessed. With my talent and comprehension, if I persisted in the ascetic practice, I might have ascended in my third life. Why would I need to reincarnate 7 times? If I couldn't realize this, I might not be able to ascend in this life. How many more lives could that little soul of mine last? Thinking of this, he put his palms together and bowed deeply to Li Qingshan. Amitabha, thank you for breaking my Great Joy Zen. From now on, I don't dare to call myself a love monk. He took a deep look at Qiu Haitang with undisguised adoration, but he saw himself in her peach blossom-like eyes. He resolutely threw down that page of love poem and walked out of the door. In the rain, he could hear him chanting loudly, "All love will pass, impermanence is hard to last. Life is full of fear, life is at stake in the morning dew. Love gives birth to worry, love gives birth to fear. If I am separated from my lover, there is no worry nor fear." From now on, Lai Zhou lost a love monk and gained a new ascetic monk. Li Qingshan pondered, "So it's the Great Joy Zen, I've heard so much about you. Interesting, after I broke his technique, he wants to thank me. No wonder the Mahesvara could become a great deity of Buddhism. But the real Mahesvara demon master probably wouldn't be as gentle as me when facing the Dharma. Once he couldn't withstand the test, even if he didn't die, he would become a demon. I'm not afraid of becoming a demon, but if there is no worry or fear, wouldn't life be very boring?" Begonia looked at Prince Songyang's back disappearing in the rain and murmured, "I saw his infatuation, he wasn't as sincere as he thought, but I didn't expect it to be like this." Li Qingshan said loudly, "Just now, who was so bold to wrongly accuse me? Am I, Li Qingshan, such a narrow-minded person? It's just that my beloved woman is being pursued, what's the big deal?" When Begonia heard him say, "beloved woman," in public, her cheeks couldn't help but blush, making her look gorgeous. She bit her red lips and said in a low voice, "I've wrongly accused you. Since you're wrong, you have to be punished." Li Qingshan carried her in his arms and strode upstairs. Begonia moaned, but didn't resist. Li Qingshan smiled and whispered in her ear, "Where's your boudoir?" "I don't know." Li Qingshan raised his head and sniffed, "Found it." The dark clouds in the sky dispersed, and the sky was clean as if it had been washed. The stars were bright and dazzling. In the hall, everyone was still in shock and looked at each other. Like a flock of frightened sheep, even though the danger had passed, they didn't know what to do. The women suddenly had a new dream lover, and felt that all the men around them were not good enough to look at. The men also lost interest and left, but there was a faint feeling of blood boiling, thinking that men should be like this. Li Qingshan stepped into the boudoir that was filled with fragrance. It was not the smell of any perfume, but the smell of her body. He couldn't help but bury his head in her neck and took a deep breath. Begonia's ears and temples were rubbing against each other, and she also felt his body temperature, breath. Her mind was intoxicated, but she still couldn't believe it. After waiting for so long, it's finally here? My novel, The Legend of the Great Sage, will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign on the top right, add friends, search for the public account, Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1309. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the WeChat public account, Kdred, and add me to give more support to the legend of the great sage. Li Qingshan also felt her mood at the moment and hugged her tightly. The silver moonlight shone down from the glass ceiling and enveloped them like a veil. You don't blame me for wrongly accusing you? Begonia stroked his handsome face. She knew that all men would care about this, but she had to do it. Whether Prince Zongyang was sincere or not, he had helped her a lot. How could she repay his kindness with enmity and let him suffer because of her? Li Qingshan laughed. Actually, you didn't wrongly accuse me. I just didn't like him and wanted to teach him a lesson. I didn't expect it to be so effective. Destroying the cultivation method of my rival in love is really a great thing in life. I knew it. Begonia was angry and amused at the same time. She glared at him and said flirtatiously, narrow-minded. So what? How can my woman be coveted by others? I love you, but that doesn't mean I belong to you. Her righteous declaration turned into a bone-chilling moan. You are. Li Qingshan didn't want to talk nonsense with her. His big hands suddenly climbed up to the peaks and wantonly kneaded. Even though they were separated by a few layers of clothing, the soft and bouncy sensation was extremely pleasurable to the touch. You bully me like this? Aren't you afraid that I will fall in love with someone else? Begonia said intermittently. She felt a fire burning in her chest. Her face was flushed and her eyes were like silk, making her even more alluring. Then I wouldn't be here. Li Qingshan laughed. Yes, Master Qingshan has many women. Why would he care about an ugly woman like me? Begonia pretended to be resentful. If you are ugly, there is no beauty in this world. But maybe there are some parts that I didn't see. Very ugly, let me check carefully. Li Qingshan carried her to the side of the bed. Qiu Haitang gazed at him in a daze before sinking into the soft bed like a cloud. He had prepared for this day for a long time, but he was still a little flustered. She grabbed his hand that was unbuckling her belt and whispered his name. Qingshan. He was infatuated and full of longing. When Li Qingshan heard this call, he felt like his heart was about to be drunk. He felt a sense of pity and suppressed his desires. He also felt that he was too impatient. They hadn't seen each other for many years. She hadn't even seen him yet. Wanting to do something good the moment she saw him was a little too lustful. He slowed down his movements and held her soft, red hand. He asked, Haitang, why did you come to Thunder State? Begonia pulled out her hairpin, letting her hair down like a cloud. She nestled in his arms and said, It's because of little Anne. She started a massacre in the various states. Although I hadn't come to Qingzhou, I felt that Qingzhou was truly too unstable. There was even a gate of hungry ghosts open, and there was no sign of human activity. It was no longer the mortal world and wasn't suitable for cultivation, so I wanted to change to a safer place. Yongzhou and Yunzhou were out of the question. The Dragon Province obviously wasn't a bad choice either. I still had to go to a desolate place. Originally, the Mist Province wasn't bad, but it was too close to the gate of hungry ghosts. The Frost Province was too barren, and the Wolf King was known for his lust. There was no one to keep him in check, so I could only come to Thunder State in the end. This is a desolate place, but the people here are open, cheerful, and passionate. The scenery is excellent too, and the Buddhist Dharma of Tantra prevails here. Basically all the great cultivators are monk kings and Dharma kings. There are strict rules of Buddhism, so it's not easy for people to covet it. A love monk, like Prince Zongyang, really is an anomaly, but he won't do anything too excessive. Li Qingshan listened with a smile. Her voice was soft, sweet, and filled with affection. Even if he listened to it for 3 days and 3 nights, he would not get tired, not to mention that she was in his arms, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. Haitang already knows how to protect herself. I'm very glad. I obviously know how to protect myself. When I was sect Master Lu, you were still a wild kid. Sigh, I'm only protecting myself like this so that you can bully me like this. What's the point? Begonia glanced at his large hand that wandered around her body and endured the throbbing in her heart. I haven't asked you yet. Why did you come to Thunder State? Li Qingshan lifted her chin and pressed his forehead against hers. Their eyes met. I could sense that you were thinking of me, and I also sensed that you were in danger, so I came looking for you. Really? Li Qingshan smiled. If I lie, may the heavens strike me with lightning. Why would the current you be afraid of being struck by lightning? You're probably eager for the heavenly tribulation to descend and ascend. Begonia said disapprovingly, but her eyes were filled with tenderness. She took out a jade talisman from her bosom. It still carried her warmth. This was what Li Qingshan had left for her. She could crush it and send a message when she was in danger. Just now, when she was hesitating about whether she should do this or not, he walked out from the crowd. It was like he had jumped out of her head. Her emotions were indescribable. She could not help but think back to the many times they had met and how he had saved her from danger time and time again. Li Qingshan thanked the spirit turtle's omen once again. If he had waited for her to crush the jade talisman before rushing to Thunder State, the situation would have been very passive. It would not have been as easy and casual. Who doesn't want to ascend among cultivators? Begonia suddenly thought that if he ascended, with her weak cultivation, she would never be able to catch up to him. Amidst this endless sweetness, she felt a stabbing pain from the depths of her heart. She could not help herself, and 2 clear streams of tears fell like rain. What's wrong? Li Qingshan was surprised. He hurriedly wiped away her tears, but the more he wiped, the more tears flowed. Begonia frowned and shook her head. It's nothing. I just thought of Prince Songyang's poem. All love meets, impermanence rarely lasts. Love gives birth to sorrow, love gives birth to fear. I thought I had already gotten over it, but I never thought I would be so reluctant to part. We've just met, and I already feel the pain of parting. You really know how to ruin my cultivation. Seeing her like this, Li Qingshan felt sorry for her. Don't listen to his nonsense. People will die eventually. Is it because we are destined to die that we have to suffer and struggle every day? Then why do we pursue immortality? Because we are afraid of losing it, we don't dare to get it. We even pretend that we don't care and deliberately belittle those precious things. That is a hypocritical coward. Qiu Haitang blinked. Am I a precious thing? You are the person I cherish. Although I am fickle, fond of beauties, and rarely lovesick, but, as Li Qingshan spoke, he could not continue. He was indeed not the kind of man who put true love above everything else. Even when he fell in love with Gu Yenying at first sight, he could not forget her. Only when he missed Little and more, but Little and was like a part of his body to him. It had nothing to do with love. Begonia smiled through her tears. I didn't ask you to be like me. Otherwise, wouldn't we be crying to each other? It is because of this that you can always protect me. I am not that greedy. She stuck out her tongue and felt a little guilty. Wasn't what she wanted to do so greedy? That strand of lovesickness was to firmly bind the person she loved. My novel, The Legend of the Great Sage, will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign on the top right, add friends, search for the public account, Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1310. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account, Kdred, and follow me to give me more support. Yes, that's right. When you're alive, live well. When you're happy, live to your heart's content. When the day comes that you have to die, die calmly. Li Qingshan could not help but touch her face when he saw how cute she was. You really can't grow up. Begonia felt that his words were like knives. Although they were simple, they easily cut through the chaos in her heart. She did not know how to deal with that matter. Seeing how he doted on her like a child, she felt even sweeter. I've changed a lot. You're clearly no different from back then, but you treat me like a child. Is that so? Li Qingshan touched his cheeks. With his demonic and divine bloodline, even if he did nothing, his lifespan would still be over 10,000 years. A mere century was nothing at all. Obviously, he would not age with his current appearance. Of course, Begonia was not talking about his appearance, but his heart. The human heart was constantly changing, growing, and even aging. In fact, he had experienced far more things than Begonia. All sorts of scenes passed by like smoke. He was chased to death by the Dragon King of the Sea and resurrected from the Phoenix's nirvana. He wandered and searched in the illusion created by the Sea King of Mirage Sea, Shen Mengdai. He was a husband, a father, the lord of the world, and a world god in the small world. He traversed billions of kilometers of the void and was with the stars in the sky. Anyone who experienced all of these might have a drastic change in personality. At the very least, they would become a little more mature. However, he did not change. He was not mature and did not age. Instead, a lively and cheerful ape fiend was born in his heart. He became more and more willful. He kissed her ear gently and smiled. Isn't that good? It's better than changing after being scolded by someone. I'll give up what I love and walk another path. Do you think everyone is as stubborn as you? Qiu Haitang raised the corner of her lips, her eyes filled with admiration. Sometimes, the smarter a person is, the easier it is to get lost. Fortunately, I'm not that smart. Speaking of which, what the hell was a love monk? This great joy Zen was basically a heretical path. Since he was a monk, just eat vegetarian and pray to Buddha. Why are you thinking about women? Don't look down on him. Prince Songyang is known as the 7 Lives of Passion monk. He is the dream lover of countless girls in Thunder State. Not only is he infatuated with me, but he can also compose poems. I don't know how good it is. Sigh, it's a pity that I met a demon too late. Qiu Haitang adjusted her tone and pushed the hair on her left shoulder to the back. Her last sigh was filled with regret. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. Compose a poem? Yes, I kept them all. There's a thick stack. Begonia took out a stack of poems from her sumaru ring. He said playfully, do you want me to read it to you? That way, you can broaden your horizons and learn what true love is. Sure. Li Qingshan licked his lips. His aura was already somewhat dangerous. Begonia did not care and continued to tease the tiger's whiskers. She cleared her throat and began to read. As expected of the love monk's love poem. The words were elegant and the rhythm was elegant. Moreover, it was filled with admiration and admiration for her. She read half a poem. Suddenly she let out an and stopped. She felt his large, scorching hand directly under her shirt. That soft and delicate touch was no longer blocked by clothes. Li Qingshan felt his fingertips sink into a ball of softness. As if it was about to melt, he blew a breath into her ear and said with a smile, "Why aren't you reading?" Begonia snorted. She grabbed his mischievous hand and continued to read in a fit of pique. The fire in his palm penetrated through her skin and grabbed her heart. Her breathing became more rapid and her face became redder. Her body melted into his embrace like water. She felt something change under her butt. She squirmed uneasily, wanting to move further away. Li Qingshan took a deep breath. She could actually be so seductive. His left hand pressed on her lower abdomen and made her sit tightly in his embrace. She sank into a ball of softness. His right hand picked up the red bean and gently rubbed it. Begonia moaned and grabbed his hand with both hands. The poem manuscript scattered all over the bed. She could not continue reading anymore. Her face was so red that it seemed like water was about to drip out. She was as beautiful as a peach and a peerless beauty. She glowed with unprecedented charm. This was the kind of beauty that would only bloom in front of the person she loved. You only know how to touch me. Begonia bit her red lips and said intermittently. Li Qingshan said proudly, "Oof, what's the big deal about writing poems? If I want to, I can write hundreds or thousands of poems." Really? Begonia's face was full of disbelief. I don't want hundreds or thousands of poems. Listen up. Although Li Qingshan was not a poet in his previous life, he still remembered many of those famous poems. However, cultivation relied on strength and not talent. Copying novels could gather wish power, but copying poems was useless. However, as a transmigrator, how could he admit defeat in a place like this? So he said loudly, "If life is only as long as we first met." He glanced at her and saw that she was slightly startled, as if she was surprised. He could not help but feel proud. Although this poem of mine is common, it is very effective against ignorant and artistic young girls. Why does the autumn wind grieve the painting fan? Begonia rested her chin on her hand and listened quietly. Ordinary changes change the heart of an old friend, but the heart of an old friend is fickle. Li Shan's poem ends in the middle of the clear night, the night rain and the bell finally disappears. How is it better to be a man in a brocade gown, with wings and branches attached to each other? Begonia sighed slightly. This is only the first line of this poem, but it is better than all the love poems I have read. If your hands were more honest, it would be even better. It turned out that when Li Qingshan was a plagiarist, he did not stop touching her. Like a beautiful jade in his hand, he could not help but gently caress it. Hey, now you're convinced. Where did you copy it from? At this time, it doesn't fit the occasion. It's an original work. Piracy must be investigated. Li Qingshan did not expect her to be so sensitive, so he would not admit it even if he was beaten to death. What's wrong with it? I was thinking of you, worried that you might have a change of heart, so I wrote this poem. I don't believe it. If you have the ability, then copy it. Yo, I saw through you, so you're angry from embarrassment. Begonia laughed. Suddenly, through her clothes, she pressed down on his hand that was covering her chest, and pressed it down deeply. Li Qingshan did not use so much force, afraid that he would hurt her tender skin. But he heard her say seriously, "This heart of mine will not change. Are you willing to give your heart to me?" How could Li Qingshan say he was not willing? Don't regret it. Begonia seemed to be implying something. I have no regrets in my life. Begonia stared at him, and suddenly smiled. Then she made up her mind. Since you said so, you can't blame me. I'm doing this to gain your affection. Blinking her eyes, her red lips opened and closed, and her voice was clear and firm. Li Qingshan could not bear it anymore, and kissed her red lips that were as tender as the petals of a flower. The novel will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign on the top right, add friends, search for the public account, Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up. To be continued. Chapter 1311. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account, Kdred, and add me to give more support to the legend of the great sage. Begonia moaned and closed her eyes. She had rehearsed this scene countless times in her heart. When she was aroused, the rouge heart in her body would surge, and her charm would rise to a higher level. Even Li Qingshan, who was used to seeing beauties in the world, felt dazzled. Although they had known each other for many years, he felt as if spring had returned and peach blossoms had appeared for the first time. This was no longer a matter of attracting the attention of the opposite sex with her stunning appearance and graceful figure. It was the so-called beauty of the Buddhists. Before Li Qingshan could react, Begonia took the initiative to hug his neck and put her fragrant tongue into his mouth passionately and clumsily. Her peach blossom eyes were full of intoxication and confusion, and she almost wrapped her whole body around him. Hai Tang. Li Qingshan was a little surprised. Although he thought that his charm was amazing, it should not reach the level of a human-shaped aphrodisiac. At her level of cultivation, no matter how addicted she was, there was still a trace of clarity in her mind. However, he did not know that all these years, she had been practicing the rouge dyeing method and had put all her effort into the red line of yearning. In order to condense that strand of yearning red thread, one had to pay a price that was not as simple as virginity. There also needed to be a feeling of yearning, like a silkworm spitting out silk, slowly wrapping around that rouge heart. That was why it was called yearning red thread. Being emotionless could deceive others, but not oneself. If one did not have a sincere heart, how could there be a sense of yearning? Therefore, whether it was successful or not, one had to first pay a heart and endure the pain of yearning. It was like hurting oneself before hurting the enemy. It was precisely because of this that the rouge dyeing method had been passed down for many years, and countless female cultivators had practiced this method. But very few people were willing to practice this method. If they had such thoughts, they might as well practice the other methods in the method, and then they could play with men in the palm of their hands. Was it fun to turn oneself into a love-struck fool? Everyone liked to gain, but they were stingy with giving. This was true for wealth, and even more so for feelings. Only in this way could they be in an invincible position. In the words of Li Qingshan's previous life, once he got serious, he would lose. However, she had sacrificed everything, like a moth flying into a flame. Even when Li Qingshan had been exiled to space, his yearning had never stopped for a single moment. Instead, it had become even purer. He had suffered all the pain of yearning, but he had no regrets. This was also a strange thing. Any woman who was able to cultivate this yearning dye the red thread. It was impossible for a man to resist this enchantment that was specially prepared for him. It was inevitable that they would blend in like water and milk, implicating each other. Begonia was no exception. Many years ago, from the moment she cultivated yearning dye red thread, she couldn't wait to find Li Qingshan. However, perhaps it was because of the bad fate of the human face peach blossom physique that they were separated from each other, unable to meet. Thus, Begonia could only continue to condense that yearning dye red thread, forcefully forming that yearning red thread into a yearning net. At this moment, she could no longer endure it. It was basically like she was suffering from the backlash of the technique. The effects were probably something that even the creator of this cultivation method could not imagine. Li Qingshan had no idea that he had already fallen into a yearning net. His heart was filled with tenderness and concern, which instead overwhelmed his lust. He felt like she seemed to be suffering from chi deviation, so he used the spirit turtle's method of chi suppression to calm her down. Begonia cleared her head slightly. She could not help but feel extremely embarrassed. She turned her head away. "What are you looking at?" Even the tone of her voice had changed. It seemed like she was about to cry. Li Qingshan felt like a cat had scratched his heart. It was truly indescribable. If it were not for the fact that he was worried about her, his bestial nature would have erupted already. Begonia also felt like the yearning dye the red thread had reached a point where she had no choice but to use it. She felt both anxious and embarrassed, conflicted in all sorts of pain. If she begged him, how was she supposed to say it? She gritted her teeth. "It's useless." What? Li Qingshan was taken aback. He had never heard of something like that in his life. He was unable to wrap his head around it at all. How useless? Fuck. Li Qingshan raised an eyebrow. Without any more hesitation, he slid his index finger across her chest. Her bodice, together with the belt of flowers, split open, and a pair of jade rabbits leapt out. She was even prouder than he had imagined, but her waist just happened to be slender and slender, forming an enchanting curve. His heart skipped a beat. His index finger slid across her smooth abdomen and continued downwards, splitting the bright red dress and the silk underpants together. He felt a hint of wetness on the tip of his finger, and a soft moan rang out by his ear. She did not try to hide her beauty at all, lying on the torn clothes and scattered love poems like a white goat. She was dyed red, giving off a soul-stirring charm. At this moment, Li Qingshan forgot about everything around him. He grabbed her round, firm thighs and separated her tightly closed legs. He pressed forward, knocking open the door and entering the flower path. Begonia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her tightly shut eyes suddenly snapped open, and a sliver of pain flashed through them. A clear tear fell from the corner of her eye, like a drop of dew falling from a peach blossom petal. The drop of red was dyed red by yearning. In that moment, Li Qingshan was drowned by the tide-like feelings of yearning. His heart seemed to be entangled by an invisible thread, tightening bit by bit. He lost control of his mind as a result. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes. The spirit turtle instinctively tried to suppress it, refusing to lose control like this. No matter how wondrous the heart-dying art was, it was only a second heavenly tribulation cultivation method. No matter how deep her yearning was, it was no match for the deathly stillness of the deep sea. Even the waves of the ocean could be suppressed, let alone the ripples of emotions. This was the path of cultivation. There was no such thing as true love being invincible. There was only a clash of spirit against spirit, a clash of strength against strength. The victor was the master, and the loser was the slave. Begonia seemed to sense something. Her eyes became rather flustered, and her body trembled uncontrollably. She seemed extremely weak. If this was a war, she would have already lost everything. But why did she have to treat this as a war? Li Qingshan smiled and let go of his mind. He bent over and merged with her completely, kissing her deeply on the lips. He allowed the thread of red to stir up huge waves in his mind. He embraced her warm body and accepted all of her yearning. He allowed her to turn him into anything. This was not a curse, but the bliss of the boundless secular world. Perhaps the appearance was illusory, but it was definitely not fake. Li Qingshan felt the miniature world in his body being activated as well. The ape demon scratched its head in joy. The ape demon transformation that it had just broken through began to circulate once more. Suddenly, he came to a realization. The ape demon had always been obsessed with illusion, chasing after the moon in the water foolishly. It was not as rational and patient as the spirit turtle, completely ignoring the great principle of appearance is emptiness, emptiness is appearance. It allowed itself to sink into the joy that was destined to be lost. There was no need to feel disappointed. There was no need to be afraid of losing. We had nothing in the first place. If life was like a dream, why not throw yourself into it a little more seriously? When the moon was fished out, a new moon would be born in the water. The novel, The Legend of the Great Sage, will have even more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% chance of a lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign at the top right, add friends, search for the official account Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up! Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1312. P.S. I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions. Search for the official WeChat account Kdred and add me to support The Legend of the Great Sage. Qingshan. Begonia moaned softly. She had never felt so happy in her life. It was as if her soul had flown to the heavens and reached the pure land of ultimate bliss. All the pain she had endured was compensated tenfold or even 100-fold. With the red thread of yearning connecting them, their minds were connected. Li Qingshan also felt endless joy and understood all of her thoughts, including what the red thread of yearning was. At this moment, the delicate body in his arms trembled. A gentle and pure aura flowed into his body through their connection. Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. He did not expect her primordial Yin energy to be so pure and contain such a strange power. He had the experience of dual cultivation with Gong Yuan before. Gong Yuan's cultivation was far above hers, but the benefits she received were not as good. Moreover, this power was surging and endless, as if it wanted to hollow out her body. Her aura rapidly weakened, and her white skin was dyed a sickly red. But she was completely unaware of it, or perhaps she was deliberately letting it go. Her snow-white arms hugged him tightly, and her legs wrapped around his waist. She did not care about her deformed breasts, as if she wanted to melt her entire body into his. In an instant, she transferred all of her cultivation into Li Qingshan's body. It was not just a golden elixir, but also all of her essence, qi, and spirit. Li Qingshan's mind changed, and he unreservedly absorbed all the primordial Yin energy. Then he used the small world in his body to absorb, transform, and refine it. Then he kissed her lips again, transferring a scorching aura to her, forming a perfect cycle. So this is the real dual cultivation. Gong Yuan and I just happen to have compatible cultivation techniques. I helped her suppress her inner demons and obtain the power of the ruins end from her. Even if we did not have intercourse, it would have the same effect. Now, she has almost become my human cauldron, which can be used to collect yin to replenish yang. Similarly, I am also her human cauldron, refining her essence and collecting yang to replenish yin. Be it Buddhism or Taoism, they all had dual cultivation techniques. It could be seen how amazing this dual cultivation technique was. Even monks and Taoists wanted to study it. It was just that it was too easy to get lost in this Tao technique. Therefore, they were not welcomed by Orthodox Buddhists and were even condemned as heretics. But regardless of whether they liked it or not, yin-yang dual cultivation was one of the 3,000 great Taoists, and no one could deny it. It belonged to the dual cultivation school of Taoism, which was also divided into two schools. One was to cast a wide net and use all the opposite sex in the world as human cauldrons, plucking yin to nourish yang, or plucking yang to nourish yin. This cultivation method allowed one to progress extremely quickly. It was just that the aura he had plucked was mixed, and it took time to refine it, so it was easy for him to reach a bottleneck. The advantage was that he had enough experience, so it was not easy for him to fall into the trap of love. In the world of cultivation, there was no concept of men and women that mortals had. Even if they kept their virginity, it was basically for the sake of cultivation, not for the so-called chastity. They were actually very casual about such matters. However, there were many demonic Tao cultivators. He was too lazy to spend so much energy to cultivate a suitable cauldron. He did not hesitate to kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. He destroyed the life foundation of the cauldron and even plucked them to death, which was why he gained so much notoriety. However, compared to those demonic Tao cultivators who massacred people and refined souls, he was not considered a great evil. The other was to find a suitable partner to become a dual cultivation partner. This would be beneficial to both of them, and their auras would be abnormally pure. Such a partner was not easy to find. His talent and cultivation could not be too bad, otherwise he would become a burden. He also had to be compatible and could not be forced at all. He also had to pay a huge psychological price, and it was easy for him to fall into the trap of love. It was especially dangerous for female cultivators. Speaking of which, there were not many male cultivators who were willing to take this path. As the saying went, men can be relied on, pigs can climb trees. No matter what era or world, men will become bad when they have money, was the truth of the world. And cultivators were not just rich. In fact, no matter man or woman, no one could guarantee that their heart would not change on the path of cultivation. Once there was a problem with his dual cultivation partner, or himself, it would be much more tragic than a divorce. Damage to the soul would be considered light, and from then on, he would no longer believe that love was absolute. It would be better to take the previous path from the beginning. Staining the red thread with rouge could be considered as a great guarantee for female cultivators who took this path. However, the staining the heart with rouge technique mainly focused on the first path. There were many techniques that could properly govern the harem. It could be said that one could be a slut, but also a virtuous woman. Most of the sect's disciples chose the first path. They could choose a suitable cauldron from among the people who came, and they could also obtain a large amount of resources. They could even live happily for a while. It could be said that it was beneficial but not costly. However, Begonia was different. Not only was her talent extraordinary, but she also valued the word love more than anything else. The boundless secular world was only a way to sharpen her temperament. She wholeheartedly waited for her Mr. Right. Otherwise, her cultivation would have been much higher than it was now. Li Qingshan held her in his arms and lightly stroked the long black hair on her back. "You're really a fool. If I refused your red thread of yearning, not only would your cultivation be destroyed, your life would also be in danger. Have you never thought that you would fail?" "I've thought about it. Giving everything to you like this, and then dying in your arms isn't bad either." Begonia didn't care in the slightest. Li Qingshan felt that her thoughts were purely from the bottom of her heart. There wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood, and there wasn't even any fear. Instead, there was a kind of romantic and dreamy color to it. "Idiot, consider my feelings for a bit. However, you didn't refuse." The corners of Begonia's lips rose slightly. "You don't blame me?" I've already fallen for your trick. From now on, I'll be wholeheartedly devoted to you, and I'll be completely obedient. How can I blame you? Didn't you already plan it all out? At this point, how could the little thoughts in her heart be hidden from Li Qingshan? It was really infuriating and funny at the same time. Then, will it be of any use? Begonia probed. She had endured so much pain and taken such a huge risk just to firmly hold onto his heart. From then on, they would be together, never to be separated. It's useless, Li Qingshan judged without holding back. His temperament had been tempered, and compared to the ape demon's stupidity, the bull demon's stubbornness was even more bone-deep. How could he be restrained so easily? Damn it, what kind of lousy technique is this? It caused me to suffer for so many years. So it was all a lie. Begonia was greatly disappointed. If it was just to become dual cultivation partners with him, there wouldn't be so much trouble. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, her eyes suddenly widened. How could she have such a thought? Her tone was completely wrong. It seems like it's still useful. Li Qingshan chuckled. This red thread of yearning had indeed made their hearts and minds match. Their connection was even closer than that of ordinary dual cultivation partners. He was indeed deeply infatuated with her. However, rather than saying that he was controlled by the technique, it would be better to say that he was moved by her feelings. Dual cultivation partners influenced each other. She was just a small river, but he was a vast ocean. It was needless to say who influenced who. Begonia still wanted to say something, but Li Qingshan grabbed her legs with both hands and pressed her under his body. Her body was almost folded in half, and he began to conquer her. The blazing fire of lust instantly ignited her. She could no longer think about anything else. At the same time, a majestic aura surged into her body, and the seawater began to flow backward. The aura on Begonia's body skyrocketed, filling her limbs and bones. The rouge heart shone with unprecedented light, and even her body was being tempered and strengthened continuously. Although she didn't achieve the goal of completely taming Li Qingshan, but a powerful dual cultivation partner was of great help to cultivation. Li Qingshan's cultivation was far higher than hers. They were more than a big realm apart. The small world in his body was almost equivalent to a super furnace. If not for the fear that she couldn't bear it, it wouldn't be difficult for her to go through 3 heavenly tribulations. For cultivators, this was the most important thing. Only a weirdo like her would tame Li Qingshan as her first goal. This was not opportunistic. For this day, she had prepared her whole life and sacrificed everything. It could be said to be a great perseverance and a great blessing. That thought that was different from ordinary people was more important than great wisdom. The spring tide surged in the building, and the moonlight was as bright as water. However, the Xilyang Palace at the top of the mountain was silent. Li Qingshan's existence. It made everyone feel uneasy, even if he said he didn't mean any harm. But who could sleep well when a fierce tiger was lying on the bed? The king of Xilyang stepped into the main hall and closed the door with a wave of his sleeve. The main hall was deep and dark, and only the amethyst in the middle of the main hall glowed with a faint light. The king of Xilyang bowed respectfully to the amethyst. "Fellow cultivator, what can I do for you?" The figure of Chua Long appeared on the amethyst. His power was not enough to interfere with a desolate place like Laizhou, but the Xia kingdom naturally had a way to contact the lords of various states. The king of Xilyang was nervous. The Xia kingdom's diplomatic corps was destroyed in the city of Buddha, and this responsibility could not be avoided. If Chua Long ordered him to attack Li Qingshan, what should he do? It was safer to be a fence-sitter, but he would inevitably be bullied on both sides. Unexpectedly, Chua Long did not ask about Si Qing and the others, but only asked, "Where is he?" The king of Xilyang answered honestly, "He is still in the city, at a place called the Tower, meeting with the headmaster, Begonia." A disaster is imminent, and you still don't know it, and you are still immersed in those mediocre women. Chua Long seemed to have everything under his control, as if he was not affected by the massacre of the diplomatic corps. The king of Xilyang had seen Begonia many times, and he did not think much of the term mediocre women. If it was not for his concerns, he would also want to bring her into the palace. Reality proved that his concerns were right. It was best not to look at Li Qingshan's women, to avoid trouble. He thought to himself, I don't know if he is facing a disaster. If you want me to help you punish him, I'm afraid I will be the first to face a disaster. Chua Long seemed to see through his thoughts. Don't worry, I won't let you do something like throwing an egg against a rock. He is my opponent. The king of Shiliang heaved a sigh of relief. Then why did you come? Chua Long said, I have a declaration of war. Help me spread it throughout Liezhou and let everyone know. Declaration of war? The king of Shiliang was shocked. If a declaration of war was useful, why did he need cultivation? Was it just to vent his anger? That was too unwise. Not only would he not be able to hurt Li Qingshan, but he would also expose his hostility and be mocked by him. You don't have to be surprised, you will understand in the future. He thought that he could use the destruction of the world to threaten me, and instead help to gather the hearts of the people. On the 15th of October, on the day of my wedding, I will offer sacrifices to the heavens at Dragon Head Mountain, gather the heroes of the world, and kill this evil person. The king of Shiliang immediately understood Chua Long's meaning and was shocked. He was indeed the first emperor. If that was the case, Li Qingshan would not be able to survive. He lowered his head deeply. Yes, your majesty. The novel The Legend of the Great Sage will have more new content on the official WeChat platform. At the same time, there will be a 100% lucky draw for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign on the top right, add friends, search for the public account, Kdred, and follow it. Hurry up. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 1313. The stars shone resplendently in the clear sky, and destiny flowed. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows slightly and listened attentively. What's wrong? Begonia asked. Nothing. Li Qingshan shook his head with a smile. It was a warning from the spirit turtle. From the moment he flipped the table, destiny had begun to shift. The danger grew heavier and heavier, and just now, it was even more profound. It went without saying that the turtle dragon must have found some way to deal with him again. This was the most powerful opponent he had ever encountered in his life. A 50% chance of victory was already too much. Once he was defeated, it would be almost impossible for him to survive. Right now, it was like watching the wheel of destiny slowly crush down. No one knew whether they could withstand it or not. The reason why he was still standing here was probably because running away was a worse choice. There was great terror between life and death. How could he be an exception? However, there was no need to say anything to make her worry. Begonia sighed gently. She knew he did not want to share this with a woman, no, with anyone. She could only lean into his arms and give him some more gentleness. Li Qingshan pulled her into his arms and closed his eyes. A while later, his breathing calmed down, and he gradually fell asleep. At the same time, a declaration against Li Qingshan spread through the world. Traitor Li is of insignificant birth. He defies common sense, killing his brother and bullying his sister-in-law. A burly figure tore at the clothes of a beautiful woman. A man bled from all 7 orifices beside the bed, dying with his eyes wide open. Bloodthirsty and warlike. Wherever he goes, trouble follows. The burly figure walked out of the bloodied village, stepping over the wilderness littered with corpses and reducing a city to ruins. His eyes became redder and redder, and his figure twisted viciously. He was no longer humanoid. Destroy the demon cavern and open the gates of hell. Demon folk invade. Ghosts and corpses dance wildly. The twisted, vicious-looking figure sat on a throne piled high from a mountain of corpses. His scarlet eyes gazed down at the world that had been transformed into a demon cavern and ghost domain. The corner of his lips curled into a terrifying smile, baring his fangs. He slaughters the people. He destroys the world. It was barren for tens of thousands of kilometers. The ground cracked, volcanoes erupted, and lava flowed like rivers of fire. Black smoke rose into the air. It was like a beacon. This traitor is envied by both men and gods, and is tolerated by the world. He is guilty of the most heinous crimes. A terrifying demon king that was as majestic as a mountain stood in this apocalyptic scene, Its horns curved like the moon. Spreading his wings like the clouds, he opened his arms wide and laughed maniacally, as if mocking the powerlessness of the heavens. Alas, the world no longer exists. Where can I entrust myself? Heaven and earth collapsed, and all living beings were annihilated. Countless creatures fled in fear, but they were devoured by the earth fire, drowned by the flood. My emperor is the descendant of Yu the Great, the descendant of the true dragon, the ancestor of great Xia. Punish the people and return to the 9 regions. Tens of thousands of rays of light appeared in the sky. A deity descended from the sky on a dragon, his sword pointed straight at the demon king. Everyone looked up in anticipation. One man's arms are strong, the world's voice is the same, the southern sea border. Northern tundra. Angry wind and clouds, I raise the dragon flag, I respectfully await heaven's punishment. General Su executed the king. Under the boundless glory, the deity raised the dragon flag high. All living beings waved their arms, as if they were the children of heaven, the king of the world. The dragon fights in the wild, its blood is yellow and black. The dark cry causes the mountains to collapse, the roar causes the wind and clouds to change. The anger of all living beings destroys the evil, the dragon chi rushes the world to peace. The deity carried the will of heaven, stepped on the golden dragon, and led all living beings to kill the demon king. He was truly the savior of the world. My emperor said, I swear to kill this villain as per the law. The face of the deity suddenly became clear. It was really the ancestor of great Xia, Long. In his dreams, these scenes repeatedly replayed. Li Qingshan frowned, as if he was trapped in a nightmare. He really transformed into that terrifying demon king, filled with a terrifying will to destroy everything, and wanted to fight with Long to determine the winner. However, every time, the dream collapsed at this point, and he returned to the beginning of the declaration, once again experiencing this dream that was both real and illusory. There was a stuffy breath in his chest, as if there was a mountain pressing on it. Li Qingshan, are you afraid? Li Qingshan, are you afraid? Li Qingshan, are you afraid? A voice drifted, repeatedly echoing in his dreams. Sometimes it was an old man, sometimes it was a young child. Sometimes it was a cold questioning, and sometimes it was a light teasing. Li Qingshan instantly calmed down. That's not me, what's there to be afraid of? A butterfly fluttered into the dream. 7 colors flickered, flowing light fluttered, and laughter rang out. All the scenes froze, collapsed, and turned into a boundless golden wheat field. In the waist-high wheat field, he was no longer the terrifying demon king, but the village boy again. He shouted angrily, Shen Mengdai, it's your doing. It was rare for him to sleep, but someone still appeared in his dreams, and it was this kind of nightmare. It was really despicable. The boy suddenly grabbed, and the butterfly passed through his fingers, flying around him. What do you think of the story just now? The boy asked. Was that declaration written by Long? Guess what happened in the end? I understand, he wanted to gather the hearts of the world to help him refine the 9 provinces. He, who was once the god of the world and the king of the world, immediately understood Long's strategy. This was something impossible, even the revered chivalrous king in the small world couldn't do it. The hearts of people were complicated and changeable, not to mention the hearts of the people. However, Long had the chance to do it, not only because of the 5,000 years of foundation of Great Xia and the blessing of the heavens, but more importantly, a common enemy. Without a world-destroying demon king, there would be no savior. Fear and hatred were far more powerful than worship and love to unite the hearts of people. This was an unbreakable plot. From the moment he flipped the table, he stood on the opposite side of the world. However, if he didn't do this, he would have no chance of winning. This move was neither a bad move nor a good one, it was just a checkmate. Long not only didn't compromise, but also issued a declaration of war. Step by step, there was no turning back for both sides. King against king, death. In such a story, it must be the hero who defeated the evil demon king. How sad. Hey, talking to yourself, full of lies. There will always be more fools than wise people. And lies are always more acceptable than the truth. There are no complicated causes and effects, no tangled right and wrong. Even if it is the so-called truth, you did want to destroy this world, didn't you? Of course, you had no other choice. Compared to that man, you were obviously more chivalrous and benevolent, and you didn't see the people as ants, and you wanted to protect this world. But in the end, you became the most terrifying and evil existence. How ironic. Because I'm not a good person, there's no need to feel sorry for myself. Why did you call me in my dream? Please turn back. You want to persuade me to give up being enemies with Si Long? You're thinking too much, I'm just turning back. Li Qingshan suddenly turned back, and a woman holding a paper umbrella stood close to him, her back facing him. The umbrella was full of flowers, blooming and withering, covering most of her body, but it was not as eye-catching as the lips under the umbrella. The butterfly stopped on her shoulder. Shenmengdai? The lips were slightly raised, and the dream was shattered. Li Qingshan suddenly woke up, the voice still echoing in his mind. I've waited for you for a long time, the 15th of October, don't break your promise. Chapter 13-14. Time passed and the clouds changed. The 15th of October arrived in the blink of an eye. What a heavy snow! Amidst the praises, a man ascended to the peak of the mountain. The biting cold wind rolled up large snowflakes and hit his bare chest. It was as if he had fallen into a ball of fire and immediately evaporated, shrouding him in a hazy mist. His face was blurred, but his tall and straight figure was like a red flag inserted on the peak of the mountain, his clothes and red hair flying in the wind. He looked around and saw that the world had turned into a world of ice and snow. Everything was white, leaving only a boundless expanse of snow. It was not yet dawn, but it was already snow-white. However, if a mortal was here, they would not be able to see more than 10 steps and would be frozen into an ice sculpture in less than 15 minutes. His scarlet eyes focused. His gaze pierced through the snow and saw a white palace surrounded by mountains. It was not because it was covered in snow. There was not a single snowflake on the palace. It was not snow-white either, but a warm and gentle white, as if it had been carved out of white jade. On the archway in front of the palace, the words Jasper Palace were engraved. The writing was extremely gentle. As soon as one saw the character, one could not help imagining what kind of person the writer was. It was undoubtedly a woman, but it was hard to say what kind of woman it was. He could not help but think of the woman holding the umbrella in his dream, as well as that faint smile. He still could not be sure if it was an illusion created by Shenmengdai, the Clam King of Mirage Sea, or the owner of this Jasper Palace, the nine-tailed fox queen. Thinking of this, he took out a large cauldron from his sumaru ring and filled it with water. Then he threw a skinned dog into the water. Then he added in various ingredients such as onions, ginger, cinnamon, and fragrant leaves. Of course, some might say that it was a wolf, the king of the Frost Prefecture, the Skyfrost Wolf King. But in his cauldron, it was just a dog. Even though the Yao core had been taken out, the flesh and bones were filled with spiritual energy. There was no need to process it, not even to bleed it. The soup used to cook the meat was water from the ruins of End. He had asked Gong Yuan for it, and the dog meat fell into it. Ice was formed on it first. Fortunately, this dog meat had an extraordinary origin. Otherwise, even pig iron would freeze and shatter into pieces if it fell into it. The cauldron was a magic treasure for concocting pills. Otherwise, it would not have been cooked at all. The value of such a magic treasure for alchemy was extremely high. It was worth more than 10 ordinary magic treasures. Moreover, it was a spoil of war obtained from the left advisor. Even the various condiments were spirit grasses cultivated by the agriculture school, paired with various precious spirit medicines. He could not remember where they had come from. It seemed to have come from the sumaru ring of that agriculture school grandmaster during the Battle of Great Buddha Mountain. After the man finished all the preparation work, he raised his head and looked at the sky. "Get down here." With a flash of brilliance, a young man descended from the sky. He was dressed in 7-colored clothes and had an exquisite crown on his head. His hair was meticulously combed to the back of his head, making him seem even more handsome and extraordinary. He had the air of a king. She gracefully bowed to the man. "Big Daddy." Li Qingshan smiled and asked, "Your subordinates didn't stop you?" Li Fengyuan's face reddened. That day, he had been obstructed by the feathermen. He felt a little guilty towards Li Qingshan for not doing his best to save little N. He patted his chest and said, "No matter what others say, I will definitely lend you a helping hand, old man. Even if you want to destroy the world, I will accompany you to the end." The feathered people would definitely not be willing to participate in the war. Even if they had to choose a side, they would definitely not choose Li Qingshan. After all, if the world was destroyed, there was no point in floating in the sky. Li Qingshan really felt that he was a little like the great demon king in the war declaration. Originally, he felt that the demon king in the various stories was all kinds of cruel and vicious, yet he had a group of smart and powerful supporters. He felt that it was incomprehensible, but now he understood a little. However, he did not feel that Li Fengyuan had wronged him regarding the matter of little N. Even as father and son, they were still individuals. They had their own judgments and choices. There was no need for them to be like mortals who played the role of filial piety and learned to be grateful. He lightly patted Li Fengyuan's head. "Who asked you to accompany me to destroy the world? Quickly cook it." "I need to conserve my strength. This meat is not easy to cook. I need to use your phoenix fire in case the taste is not good enough." Li Qingshan explained seriously. Li Fengyuan asked in disbelief, "You called me here just to ask me to cook meat for you? I am the divine bird feathered people king after all. So much nonsense. Do you want to eat it?" Li Fengyuan immediately refined the large cauldron and activated the phoenix fire to cook the meat. In a moment, the water boiled and gurgled. A strange fragrance spread out. "Turn the fire down." "Yes." This noble phoenix became the dog meat chef obediently and looked at the cauldron with envy. Li Qingshan held his chin and pondered. Li Fengyuan did not dare to disturb him, but he heard him muttering to himself, "As the great demon king, how can I not have the 4 heavenly kings? I got it." Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and pointed at Li Fengyuan. "I confer you the cooking heavenly king. Li Fengyuan, do you have any objections?" No. "Then what kind of heavenly king am I?" Gu Yenying suddenly appeared on the mountain peak and walked over elegantly. Li Fengyuan was shocked by her. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that someone could be so fast. "You are the wind lookout heavenly king," Li Qingshan said confidently. "Oh, am I in charge of keeping watch?" Gu Yenying came to the front of the large cauldron and sighed. "My poor Uncle Wolf. Not only was he killed, he also had to be sacrificed." She took a deep breath and said, "It smells so good." Li Qingshan smiled and said, "If I die, I can be fried, cooked, and made into a feast. It's better than rotting in the ground and being fed to the insects." "Then I will definitely eat everything, not even a mouthful of soup." A voice came from afar. After saying the last word, the person had already sat in front of the cauldron and was full of murderous intent. He licked his lips and looked at Li Qingshan, as if trying to distinguish which piece of meat on his body was more delicious. Li Fengyuan's heart trembled. He felt like he was facing a great enemy and instinctively became alert. Li Qingshan smiled and said, "Isn't this the bird-shooting heavenly king? Don't give me such a bad nickname." Luo Ho Xiaoming glared at Li Qingshan, his murderous intent condensing the wind and snow. He had gone through 3 heavenly tribulations and had grown a lot taller. As expected of a natural god, and one who had been a god, his cultivation speed was like that of a wild dog released from its leash. Li Fengyuan felt the blood in his body freeze, as if he was looking at a boundless sea of corpses. He was no match for this person with just this aura. When did the 9 provinces have such a peerless master? Li Qingshan did not seem to feel it. He dug his ear with his little finger and said, "It's too late. Don't delay the work of the meat-cooking heavenly king. Do you still want to eat?" The clear sound of the bell pierced through the stagnant murderous intent towards Luo Ho Xiaoming. "Finally, I can eat something decent." Luo Ho Xiaoming instantly retracted his murderous intent, as if it had never existed. Regardless of whether it was this guy in front of him or the white-bone successor, neither could be suppressed by their auras. However, if that wasn't the case, he would not be sitting here. Li Qingshan revealed a gentle smile and said, "My last heavenly king is here." Little and floated over and landed gracefully beside Li Qingshan. Li Fengyuan looked at the three heavenly kings and suddenly felt that it was an honor for him to be able to become the meat-cooking heavenly king. Moreover, he had gotten it through the back door. Floating Astronomy. Chapter 13:15. Li Fengyuan calmed down a lot when he thought about how he was cooking the Skyfrost Wolf King, one of the 10 demonic kings. He comforted himself. It's not that my job is too lowly, it's just that big old dad doesn't know how to give names. The Skyfrost Wolf King is called the Wolf God, so I'm the cooking god Li Fengyuan. He felt like he was a lot more domineering, but he didn't dare to mention this to Li Qingshan. He could only keep it to himself. The aroma was getting thicker and thicker. Even gods couldn't stand still after 3 rolls of dog meat. It's about time. Luo Ho Xiaoming couldn't help but say. Azuras loved good food and wine. The sky was getting brighter. Dawn was coming soon. Yes, let me have a taste. Li Qingshan raised his ending flower blade. This huge blade was clearly not suitable for cutting meat. If it continued to fall, it would definitely split the cauldron in half. Good boy, I'll make you the meat-cutting king. Who wants to be the meat-cutting king? The ending flower blade's soul said angrily. It shrunk the blade into a short blade. Open the pot. Li Qingshan ordered. Li Fengyuan opened the cauldron. Steam billowed with a strong aroma, and a beam of spiritual light shot into the sky. Don't tell me this is a dish from the legends. Li Qingshan could not help but grip his dying flower blade firmly. In fact, many precious pills would emit spiritual light when they came out of the cauldron. After all, so many spiritual herbs were used, and they were filled with spirit qi. The ingredients used in this cauldron of soup were extremely luxurious. It wasn't strange at all that it had such an effect. Li Qingshan cut a piece of dog meat with a determined heart. With a thought, the soup floated in front of him. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. It was as if a beam of spiritual light passed through his temples, and an extremely delicious taste bloomed on his tongue. A warm current flowed into his stomach. The dog meat was tender and chewy. Even with his teeth, he had to chew a few times before he could swallow it. He took out a jar of 1,000-year spirit wine from somewhere and took a deep gulp. The world of ice and snow seemed to turn into a scorching summer. Awesome. Li Qingshan gave Li Fengyuan a thumbs up. As expected of my king of cooking meat. Li Fengyuan gathered his courage and said, "You can also call him the cooking god heavenly king." What kind of name is that? Li Qingshan did not think much of it. They began to distribute the wine and meat. The 4 heavenly kings each had a share, and the atmosphere immediately became lively. Li Fengyuan didn't care whether he was called Heavenly King of Cooking or Heavenly King of Cooking. He ate without any manners. Little and was mainly responsible for gnawing on the bones. Actually, with just a glance, the bones in his hands would turn into samadhi flames of white bone and then be sucked into his mouth. Li Qingshan rubbed her head tenderly. Cultivating the path of white bone and great beauty had deprived her of many pleasures in life. Then he handed the imperial advisor of the left's Saraira to her. You can have this as a side dish. Gu Yenying smiled and said, most people who attend weddings will have to leave their stomachs full for a feast. Instead, we started eating first. Hee, dog meat can't make it to the banquet. I'm afraid the host won't welcome an unwelcome guest like me. I'd better eat and drink to my heart's content before visiting. Must you go? Li Qingshan smiled and raised his wine goblet, clinking it against hers. I must go. Men have to fight to the death. Why do women have so much nonsense to say? Luo Ho Xiaoming was burning with fighting spirit. From his death until now, he had finally eaten a proper meal, but he had yet to experience a proper battle. He had long since reached the end of his patience. Azura could go without food, but they could not go without battle. They could go without friends, but they could not go without enemies. Pretend I didn't say anything. Gu Yenying shrugged elegantly. Only these two would treat her like a woman, or perhaps they would make her seem more like a woman by setting her off. Actually, she had long since anticipated this result. However, in a team, there would always be someone who objected. Chua Long had sent out 1,000,000 declarations. Every single declaration could be considered a spiritual artifact. Even illiterate people and non-humans could understand them, and their minds would be bewitched. Coupled with the influence of the mysterious will of heaven, the hearts of all living beings in the world had already fallen to Chua Long's side. The hearts of all living beings in the world had already fallen to Chua Long's side. If this went on, the longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous the situation would be. Right now, declarations could not affect the will of cultivators. Once today passed, Chua Long would complete the World Alliance meeting, and it would be hard to shake him. Only when Chua Long was far away from Dragon Head Mountain and gave his all to give him a fatal blow would he have a chance to win. However, how could Chua Long not think of such a simple matter? Therefore, this opportunity was clearly bait. Even though he knew it was bait, he still had to swallow it. This was the so-called overt plot. It could only be said that as expected of Emperor Taizu. Li Fengyuan ate happily and praised, "This is really too delicious. Big old father, this won't be your last meal, right?" Li Qingshan was taken aback. He studied him up and down. "You jinx, that mocking face of yours? You really are my son after all. If I become the emperor, I'll definitely make you a little bastard crown prince. Come, let's go." Li Fengyuan's face turned red and he rubbed his head. "Not at all, compared to big old father, I am still far from you." Li Qingshan laughed and said, "It's good that you know. No matter how many tricks that Chua Long has, he was still forced to this step by big old father. He had no choice but to take the risk and gamble with me. Yenying, the enemy is hard to deal with, but it is not that scary. There is a person in my hometown who said, look down on the enemy strategically, but take the enemy seriously tactically. Fighting against the heavens, fighting against the earth, and fighting against people is endless joy. You have to learn to enjoy it. Those 1,000,000 spirit weapon declarations consumed a lot of resources, and they had to be distributed to the world. Even with Great Xia Dynasty's accumulation, it was not easy. Whether it was bait or a trap, there was a risk. Chua Long did not need to take the risk at all. He could stay in the imperial court and crush them with his momentum. But now, he had to worry about whether the 9 provinces could still be refined into a blessed land after he completed his momentum. At that time, the people he wanted to crush would not come obediently to their deaths. The final reward was a world that was on the verge of collapse and an unpredictable powerful enemy. Therefore, if he wanted to stop the destruction of the world and completely eliminate Li Qingshan, he had to reveal a flaw and give Li Qingshan a chance to deal a fatal blow. That's a great idea. Luo Ho Xiaoming's eyes lit up. If that person reaches the Azura realm, he will definitely be a powerful Azura. The joy of fighting? It's enough for you to experience it. Gu Yenying smiled slightly. Of course, she understood that the battle between the two men had already begun. Strategy, planning, confrontation, probing, mobilizing all resources, using all methods, forcing the other party step by step, and also putting themselves in a desperate situation step by step. Neither side had any hesitation. From the moment they found out about each other's existence, they swore to kill each other. All the compromises and concessions in between were fake. Today, in a direct confrontation, they would definitely fight to the death. Li Fengyuan listened from the side and felt his blood boiling. He disregarded life and death. Suddenly, he heard Little and say, Qingshan, actually, I can kill all living beings. Kill all living beings. Li Fengyuan's blood instantly froze. Floating astronomy. Chapter 1316. Luo Ho Xiaoming and Gu Yenying both looked at Little and saw that her expression was calm. There was not a hint of malevolence on her face, and there was not a hint of killing intent on her body. She spoke as if it was something as normal as eating and drinking. In her eyes, there was only the existence of Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan was also stunned for a moment. This was somewhat unexpected. From a certain perspective, this was similar to his destruction of the world. However, he had ordered the void-devouring beasts to devour the kingdom of the 9 provinces just to force the Chua dragon to reveal an opening. Although it had caused a lot of destruction, it was basically a barren land with almost no living beings. If he could defeat the Chua dragon here, then everything would end here. Even though he was determined to kill, he was trying his best to avoid unnecessary killing. I don't agree. This is too much. Li Fengyuan ignored his fear of little and suddenly stood up. A phoenix was ultimately a benevolent bird. Li Qingshan ignored him and asked with a smile, "What do you think?" Luo Ho Xiaoming drank a mouthful of wine and glanced at Li Qingshan. He did not answer. Gu Yenying played with the wine cup with her slender fingers. "Even if we support you, will you retreat today? Why don't you wait until after today? If you can't defeat the Chua dragon and survive, then we can discuss it again." "Yenying knows me best." Li Qingshan laughed loudly, his voice shaking the mountains. At this point, if he retreated, his momentum would definitely decline. He might as well just leave the kingdom of the 9 provinces. There was no need to drag everyone down with him. Little An lowered her head, feeling slightly disappointed. "I know that you are worried about my safety and don't want me to take the risk. So even though you know my decision, you still have to say it." Li Qingshan spread out his arms and pulled her into his embrace. He kissed her tender little face heavily. Xiao En's face blossomed into a smile, which was slightly red. It was like a melting iceberg and a blooming spring flower. "So, I'm the only fool?" Li Fengyuan pointed at his own nose and asked in disbelief. "My foolish son. Just cook your meat." Li Fengyuan sat down dejectedly. Once again, he felt that he did not live up to his title of king of cooking meat. Li Qingshan waved his hand and erected a barrier with the spirit turtle's profound shell. "Today is indeed a good opportunity." When the clam king of Mirage Sea ascended, she specifically left behind a clone. For the sake of dealing with Hui Long, he had gone to the Dragon Province many years ago. I originally thought that she was going to turn the Grand Xia Imperial Court upside down, but there's been no news from her. She's probably waiting for the Chua dragon's true body to descend. A few days ago, she appeared in my dream and specially reminded me to come today. He described the dream in detail, especially the last scene of the dream. "No wonder you're so determined." However, I was a little confused. Jade Palace was the 9-tailed fox queen's territory after all. Could a mere clam king of Mirage Sea really set up a powerful ambush there? Even if he really wanted to deal with Chua Long, the Skyfrost Wolf King wouldn't even be able to take a single blow from him. So, could this be a trap specially set up to lure you here? Gu Yenying's eyes narrowed slightly. She gazed at the distant Jade Palace and said, "The umbrella-wielding person you saw at the end of your dream is most likely the 9-tailed fox queen. It said that she carries an umbrella like that all year round." Li Qingshan shrugged with a relaxed expression. "Perhaps she convinced the 9-tailed fox queen to lend us a hand." He licked his lips. "Have you seen the 9-tailed fox queen before? I heard that she's the greatest beauty in the world." "Is that true?" Gu Yenying said in exasperation. "When Hui Long met the 9-tailed fox queen, not even 80 generations of your ancestors had been born. She may not have held a wedding with Hui Long, but she's already the empress of the Grand Xia dynasty. She's been receiving tributes from the Grand Xia dynasty for the past 5,000 years, so why would she turn against you? If the Clam King of Mirage Sea really had a plan, why didn't she explain it clearly? So that we could cooperate." Li Qingshan said. Perhaps she was afraid that Hui Long would sense it, so she couldn't say it clearly, just in case she divulged the heavenly secrets. "Speaking of which, why are you so excited? Or maybe she was afraid that you would sense it. Don't tell me you've been charmed." Gu Yenying's eyes were like lightning as she examined Li Qingshan. "How am I excited? Tell me, Little An. Is she excited?" Little An nodded seriously. "See, you still won't admit it." Li Qingshan smiled smugly. "Hey, is this the time to discuss my emotions? Li Qingshan, I'm very suspicious of your mental state right now. How is that possible? It's not like I've never seen a woman before." Li Qingshan could not help but think back to the golden wheat field, when she looked back and smiled under the umbrella. He clearly did not see her complete appearance, but it just happened to be so clear. Have I really fallen for her charms? He shook his head and tossed this thought out of his head. Also, why would the Clam King of Mirage Sea help Hui Long against me? Luo Ho Xiaoming said, Wait, I have a question. The nine-tailed fox queen you speak of, is it the boasting of a normal fox spirit, or a real nine-tailed fox from the Green Hill country? Li Qingshan said, Is there a difference? She's just a fox spirit anyway. There's a huge difference, like a snake and a dragon. If she's a real nine-tailed fox, then it wouldn't be strange at all for you to be charmed. Even the Clam King of Mirage Sea you speak of might have been charmed. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. That powerful? Nine-tailed foxes are a race even rarer than dragons and phoenixes. They're born with the beauty of the world and the beauty of all things. Their charms are hard to resist, and they can even be used on all living beings. It's said that nine-tailed foxes rely on their charms to cast spells. King Yu's wife, Tushan, is a nine-tailed fox. That Hui Long claimed to be a descendant of Yu the Great because of this story. He must have been charmed as well. No wonder he divided this world into 9 provinces and established some great xia. He must have wanted to please her. Gu Yenying said, That's what I'm worried about. How can a normal fox spirit make Hui Long so obsessed? I don't think a certain someone can stop them if they work together. Otherwise, let's just go kill all living beings. Luo Ho Xiaoming said, However, if it really is a nine-tailed fox, then it's too strange. This race is different from dragons and phoenixes. Most of them are concentrated in the Green Hill country and rarely wander outside. Also, according to you, she passed the 3rd heavenly tribulation 5,000 years ago, so how is it possible that she hasn't ascended yet? There were many divine beasts and strange beasts in this world, and it was even ruled by the dragon race for a long time. However, these talented races cultivated very quickly. Whether it was ascension or being buried in the tribulation thunder, this world couldn't accommodate them. It was the same for the nine-tailed fox. Gu Yenying said, I think she doesn't want to ascend to the path of demonic beasts and has been waiting for Hui Long to return. Although the nine-tailed fox will choose her partner, she's not known for her loyalty. Why would she waste 5,000 years in this place for a mere Hui Long? Was it a trap or an opportunity? All doubts were focused on the nine-tailed fox empress, which would determine the outcome of this battle. Even with Gu Yenying's insight and Luo Ho Xiaoming's knowledge, they couldn't make a judgment in a short time. Li Qingshan's eyes flashed. Very well, the nine-tailed fox empress is mine. Gu Yenying held her forehead and sighed. Hey, little brother Qingshan, are you listening to us? Of course I'm listening. Looks like the nine-tailed fox empress really is the #1 beauty of the 9 provinces. Humph, a puny Hui Long dares to provoke me. I'll eat your dog, kill your entire family, and sleep with your wife. Li Qingshan had an evil look on his face. He was already imagining the taste of the fruits of victory. Little and this bastard must have been charmed. He must have been charmed. Yes. Little and nodded seriously. Dawn was breaking in the east. Li Qingshan stood up and gazed into the distance. Thank you for your wonderful analysis. It gave me a new understanding of the situation. However, I still have to make a choice. I can either retreat out of fear and slaughter the common people, or I can fight to kill the Hui Long. I choose the latter. So what if I've been charmed? So what if it's a trap? The Hui Long won't obediently wash his neck and wait for death. In any case, I think I can fight. Luo Ho Xiaoming picked up the cauldron and drank the soup in one gulp. Then let's fight. All right, I really don't know how you managed to make it this far. Gu Yenying had a helpless look on her face. She, who was always farsighted, had only acted impulsively once for the Kunpeng feather. She really wasn't used to this kind of brainless charge. I've always had little and to help me strategize. Of course, there's also my sharp intuition. It's coming. Li Qingshan's eyes flashed. The sun rose in the east. A huge dragon flew over the horizon, its golden head splitting the sea of clouds. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't a true dragon, but a fleet. The flagship at the front was unprecedentedly huge. The Hui Long stood at the bow of the ship with his hands behind his back. Chapter 1317. What a lame name. Li Qingshan was disdainful. It was a pity that the laws of the world suppressed the space-devouring beasts as soon as they entered the Dragon Province, or they would have never taken a few ships seriously. A hawk's cry tore through the sky. The hawk spread its wings and circled above the mountains. Its sharp eyes stared at the cauldron for cooking meat. Even though it was not on good terms with the Skyfrost Wolf King, it could not help but sympathize with its loss. There was another long cry. Li Qingshan roared at the sky with great vigor. Not only did his murderousness overwhelm the hawk's cry, it even enveloped the fleet that flew over. On the Emperor Dragon King, the 3 ducal ministers and 9 ministers, as well as all the civil and military officials who had come with Chua Long to escort the bride, all had grave expressions on their faces when they heard this roar. They had already witnessed his terror on Dragon Head Mountain. Now that the death of the left minister and the others had added to his infamy, it was terrifying. Chua Long looked down at the boundless land and came face to face with a pair of blazing red eyes. Their gazes collided intensely in the air. He smiled and turned around. "My beloved subjects, watch how I will capture and kill this thief today." He took in the reactions of his subjects. After all, this was only a secondary world. Even though there were many geniuses, there were still natural limitations. However, he had no plans on relying on them today. Once he returned to the human realm, they would become his most important subordinates, so he had to demonstrate the bearing of a wise ruler. The right minister bowed. "May the emperor succeed in this battle and offer this traitor's head as a sacrifice to the heavens." The subjects all said, "May the emperor succeed in this battle and offer this traitor's head as a sacrifice to the heavens." Chua Long's smile became even wider. "Today is a joyous day for me, so there's no need for me to be so murderous. If he's willing to become my mount and atone for his sins, it's not like I can't spare him. Let's see what he chooses. Our emperor is benevolent, but that wretched demon probably won't be so easy to subdue. Then all I can do is strike quickly." As they chatted, the insufferably terrifying Demon King seemed to already be in the bag. He could destroy it with a wave of his hand. Fury flashed through Li Fenyuan's eyes when he heard those words clearly. That damned Chua Long actually wanted his first father to be his mount. What wishful thinking! Gu Yenying rested her chin on her hand and looked at the soaring eagle in the sky. Her mind seemed to have gone to the faraway void. Luo Ho Xiaoming's expression remained the same. He rubbed his belly and burped. Li Qingshan stood with his arms crossed, like a statue, or more like a banner, with a cold smile on his face. The fleet broke through the sea of clouds and flew over. The sun rose in the east and snow fell in the west. The bright sunlight dyed the snowflakes golden. It was as if a golden leaf was fluttering between the heavens and the earth, beautiful and magnificent, adding a touch of dreamy color to the Jasper Palace. The fleet finally stopped in midair. Chua Long led the ministers down from the Emperor Dragon King and walked to the front of fine Jade Palace. Even though there weren't as many formalities, they were full of sincerity and respect. Their faces were full of smiles. He seemed to have forgotten about Li Qingshan and was completely immersed in the joy of his wedding. A faintly discernible fragrance filled the air. She walked up the incense stairs alone and knocked on the door of the white Jade Palace. Clang, clang, clang. Even with his temperament, at this moment, he faintly felt a little excited. That graceful figure had appeared countless times in his dreams, but her appearance was always changing, like the thousands of withered flowers blooming on the umbrella. It made him doubt if he had really seen such a woman. He thought to himself, "Me Rao, I'm back." Even if it wasn't to refine the 9 provinces, he would definitely come back for that promise. "You want to marry me and be your empress? But you're clearly not the emperor. You don't count as someone who claims to be." The paper umbrella kept spinning. The surprise on the woman's face seemed real and fake, and the corner of her mouth was faintly discernible. "I swear, I will definitely become a true emperor and make you a true empress." The man's face was solemn and full of admiration. As the supreme ruler of the world, at this moment, he was like a mortal confessing to his goddess, saying that he would definitely give her a good life. I mean, don't you have many women? For example, that by Xiao. She definitely wants to be your empress. She wants to eat me up. The woman licked her lips, which became even more beautiful and rosy, revealing her snow-white fangs. Me Rao, in my heart, even if all the women in the world were added together, they wouldn't compare to a single hair of yours. As long as you nod, I will only belong to you. The man's heart palpitated. He took a step forward and wanted to grab the woman's sleeve, blocking with the paper umbrella. But you ascended to the human realm, and I ascended to the beast realm. How can we be husband and wife? The woman sighed and frowned. The man felt his heart was about to break. He wanted nothing more than to hug her in his arms and comfort her. He said loudly, I can bring you to the human realm. That will probably bring you great trouble. The woman smiled bitterly. Our clan is always like that. The man's expression darkened. In this world, although he was the supreme ruler of the world, he was nothing in the human realm. An innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. Taking her as his wife was like a child carrying gold in a busy market. Many deities had fallen because of their clan. He believed that the woman he admired was even more beautiful than the woman in the legends. You're right. My power is far from enough, but I will not give up. When I return to the human realm, when I have more power and can think of a better way, I will come back to find you. Are you willing to stay in this world and wait for me? The man hesitated. He also felt that his request was a bit excessive. Her talent was far above his. How could she stay in this world for long? I am not willing. The woman rejected without hesitation. Yeah, I was being delusional. How can I, Chua Long? As if struck by lightning, the man smiled bitterly and lowered his head. He was full of unwillingness. But I will wait. The woman looked up at the sky. She was a bit helpless, but more than that, she was determined. Really? The man felt as if he had risen from hell to heaven. He stared at her in disbelief. Unable to hold back his emotions, he opened his arms and hugged her. The woman pointed her index finger at his forehead and chuckled, Letcher, don't be rude. I'm not your wife. In my heart you already are. The sound of the palace gate opening woke Chua Long up from his memories. Looking at the white figure behind the gate, his smile froze. On a faraway mountain, Li Qingshan was also staring at the palace gate. He temporarily put aside his grudge with Chua Long and looked forward to seeing the appearance of the greatest beauty in the world. He muttered in his mind, Damn it, bastard, move aside. Luo Ho Xiaoming pondered. The country of Green Hill has 3 great clans, namely Tushan, Pure Fox, and Yusu. Which clan does this 9-tailed fox empress belong to? Gu Yenying replied. It should be the Yusu clan. I heard that her surname is Sumi Rao. That's troublesome. Qingshan, you should calm down. What is it? The 3 clans each have their own strengths. Tushan is virtuous, good at understanding people's hearts, and good at housekeeping. Pure Fox is intelligent, proficient in illusory techniques, and unpredictable. All of them are good candidates. Only the Yusu clan is sly, cunning, and good at seduction. They produce women who want to see the world in chaos and often bring disaster to others. Most of the 9-tailed fox's bad reputation was created by them. Even I don't want to be tainted by them. Chapter 13:18. Got it. Li Qingshan responded, but the interest in his eyes grew stronger. Luo Ho Xiaoming thought that he had miscalculated. If he accepted this warning, he would not be Li Qingshan. He was no better than someone who wished for the world to be in chaos. Bang! The white jade doors of Jadeite Palace opened completely. A beautiful woman stood at the door. Her hair was as white as snow, and her clothes were as white as a fairy's. Her sleeves were decorated with white velvet that fluttered in the wind. Snowflakes danced around her like an ice fairy that had fallen into the mortal world. She held a large axe in her hand. It was translucent and ferocious. Her pure white eyes stared at the Feng Long outside the door, freezing his thoughts. Xiao Yi. The Feng Long's expression changed. He had not expected to meet her here. Frost Feather Moth King. Li Qingshan was shocked. The white-haired woman was the Frost Feather Moth King he had saved from Ice Sword Cliff. Didn't she have a grudge against the nine-tailed Fox Queen? He had entrusted Xianyue to her in the past because he did not want Xianyue to have anything to do with the Great Xia. He had not expected her to be in Jadeite Palace. The howling of the snowstorm grew stronger, and the chill was bone-chilling. The Frost Feather Moth King unfurled her white feather clothes. Her white hair danced in the wind as she swung her profound ice divine axe. The snowstorm spun rapidly with the axe as the center. The ice and snow turned into a tornado that shot into the sky like a furious white dragon. Feng Long. The Frost Feather Moth King's voice was filled with bone-chilling hatred. She seized the opening that the Feng Long revealed due to his emotions and swung her profound ice divine axe down. The snow tornado tilted like a collapsing pillar. It was unstoppable. The officials caught up and shouted, "Protect the king," or "Watch out for the monster's sneak attack." Did the Clam King of Mirage Sea send me here to work together against the Feng Long? The axe is powerful, and the axe technique is exquisite. It seems that she has recovered her strength and gained control of the weapon soul in the axe. There are probably not many people in the world who can block it. But this is far from enough to defeat the Feng Long. Li Qingshan shook his head. He did not think the Frost Feather Moth King's attack would work. He had no intention of rushing forward to cooperate. Chua Long's expression returned to normal. He waved his right sleeve and ordered the officials to retreat. His left hand formed a sword with his fingers, which instantly pierced through the wind and snow and landed on the Frost Feather Moth King's forehead. The scene seemed to freeze, and the ministers stopped in their tracks with different expressions. The profound ice divine axe stopped above the Hui dragon's head, unable to descend any further. Boom! The falling snow tornado collapsed in an instant, and the condensed ice and snow were like a huge avalanche, smashing a 1,000-feet-long trench on the ground. The Emperor Dragon King was also within the attack range. A faint golden barrier rose up and easily blocked all the attacks. Xiao Yi, long time no see. The flying dragon slowly withdrew its sword fingers, ignoring the profound ice divine axe above its head. It looked straight at the Frost Feather Moth King with gentle eyes. "To Long, you finally dare to attack me directly. And here I thought you were plotting something." The Frost Feather Moth King's lips curled into a cold smile. He returned to his cold and emotionless appearance. He took a step back and let the door open. He raised his arm and said, "Since you've passed my test, please come in. Today is your wedding day, don't miss the hour." Li Qingshan repeatedly simulated the flying dragon's sword finger in his mind, estimating the flying dragon's strength. As expected, the difference in strength is too great. "It's not something a single weapon can make up for." He said to Gu Yenying and the others, "You guys wait outside. I'm going to drink a cup of wine and crash the place." The flying dragon nodded. "Yes, today is indeed not the time to reminisce. If I've wronged you in the past, I'll do my best to make it up to you. Please forgive me." He glanced behind him. An enormous aura entered the dragon province. The corner of his mouth curled into a smile, and then he stepped into Jasper Palace. The ministers behind him followed in a line, holding all kinds of rare treasures in their hands, which were covered with red silk. Those were the betrothal gifts that the flying dragon had meticulously prepared. The Frost Feather Moth King's eyes were slightly dazed. Suddenly, a pleasantly surprised voice sounded, "Xiao Yi, it's really you." His scarlet hair flew in the wind and snow, and he was the last to step into Jasper Palace. He hugged Bai Xiao Yi tightly in his arms, which was blazing like a ball of fire. "It's that evildoer. Fellow Taoists, be careful." The ministers of Great Xia turned pale with fright. They did not expect him to come so urgently and so quickly, as if they were facing a great enemy. Facing him at such a close distance, it was as if their lives were hanging by a thread, and they could not afford to be careless. The flying dragon frowned. It was unknown whether it was because of his subordinate's performance, or because of Bai Xiao Yi, who was in Li Qingshan's arms. Li Qingshan easily suppressed all of Bai Xiao Yi's resistance, and said with a smile, "You bunch of trash, stop acting like that. I was invited openly." He then said to Bai Xiao-yi affectionately, "Xiao-yi, that heartless man doesn't want you, but I don't mind you. Just give in to me." Bai Xiao-yi could not help but look at the flying dragon with some kind of expectation. The flying dragon's brows relaxed, and he cupped his hands. "So it's fellow Taoist Li. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you. Since you're here, come with me to welcome the bride, and then return to Mount Long Shou for a cup of wedding wine. Mi Rao must have arranged for Xiao-yi to welcome the guests to test my intentions. She must be watching from the palace now. If I get too close to her, Mi Rao will definitely be unhappy and think that I still have feelings for her. Forget it, a little impatience will spoil great plans. Li Qingshan, after today, you will make all of your women your playthings." Li Qingshan could clearly feel the malice. "All right, I have the same intention. As the saying goes, it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Let's have a good talk." The more the other party endured, the more it proved his killing intent. What a hypocritical bastard. Feeling that Bai Xiao-yi was no longer struggling in his arms, he let go of her and said, "Let's leave this place." He strode toward the flying dragon. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, the demonic aura continued to rise like a ferocious tiger. Both parties quickly approached each other. The flying dragon smiled faintly. The ministers were ready to fight, like a giant dragon entrenched in battle. The battle was about to begin. Bai Xiao-yi suddenly floated forward, and the profound ice divine axe landed between the flying dragon and Li Qingshan. "Sister Su invites the two of you to the palace as guests. I'm afraid that fellow Taoist Li won't dare to agree." The flying dragon smiled. He was unwilling to go against the wishes of Sister Su. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. "I want to see the bride's appearance and persuade her properly, so that she won't be entrusted to the wrong person." Bai Xiao-yi asked, "What if the bride refuses to change her mind?" "She might have to kill the groom." "What if the bride refuses?" "Then we can only kill them as well, and let them share the same fate." The anger in the flying dragon's eyes flashed. He could laugh it off when Li Qingshan said that he wanted to kill him, but he could not allow others to threaten her. Chapter 1319. Chua Long's footsteps paused slightly, and he walked forward without looking back. Li Qingshan touched his chin. What a deep resentment. He smiled and winked at Bai Xiao. "I think with my charm, that vixen will not be able to resist. You should be prepared to share a husband." With a long laugh, he strode into the depths of Jadeite Palace. Bai Xiao looked at his back in shock. His red hair was flying like a ball of fire, full of blazing passion. Even this world of ice and snow could not extinguish it. He did not look like a beast stepping into a trap, but like a king walking to his throne. He was so arrogant and high-spirited. Could he really defeat Chua Long like this? However, in terms of charm, just as she had a glimmer of hope, it was shrouded in a thick layer of haze. A pair of green eyes seemed to be watching everything from high up in the sky. It made her shudder, and she subconsciously hugged her arms. Bai Xiao, she is still playing with you. Just now, the vow has probably added another joke to her. She will not blame you, and she will even praise you later. At this moment, other than her, no one else could get what they wanted. They would only lose more, or even everything. Chua Long was like this, and so was Li Qingshan. Suddenly she felt a hand caressing her cheek. It was as soft as a fog, and she heard a low voice full of laughter. "You look like a moth flying into a flame. You are even more beautiful than that butterfly. Every time I see you, my heart is moved. Wait here obediently, I'm going to enjoy a feast. I want to prove to you once again how unreliable men are." The fog dissipated. The voice and the touch were like a dream. Li Qingshan and Chua Long walked side by side through the palace doors and corridors. They were only a few steps away from each other. They were not a step faster. They were not a step slower either. It was as if they were here to be the best man. They all noticed that the surrounding scenery had repeated dozens of times. Even if their pace was not fast, they should have arrived at the main palace hall long ago. However, when they looked up, the palace was still far away. They did not get any closer. Along the way, the wind and snow were blurred, and a faint fragrance wafted. They did not know what kind of flower it was, but it was intoxicating. The entourage of officials behind him had long disappeared. Only the two of them were left amidst the snowstorm and jade palaces. Mi Rao is playing a prank again. I'll play with her today. Zhuolong shook his head. He glanced at Li Qingshan beside him and asked with a smile, "Are you afraid now?" "How boring." Li Qingshan stretched his arm, almost hitting Zhuolong's shoulder. His eyes focused, deep as the sea, mystic light illuminates all. Smoke and fog surged, but Jasper Palace seemed to be even further away, so far that it seemed to be on the horizon. He was almost lost in the snow. Li Qingshan frowned. Isn't this Su clan famous for its charm? How could his illusions be so powerful? If he were to fight with the Chua dragon later, he would not be able to escape. It would be very disadvantageous for her to obstruct him from the side. As long as I misjudge a few times, my life will be in danger. Fox Cave was indeed not easy to clear. As if it had been waiting for this thought, Jasper Palace abruptly drew nearer and appeared in front of him from the horizon. Even he could not help but feel a chill in his heart, and he stopped in his tracks. In the palace carved with jade, red lanterns were hung high, and red silk ribbons filled the air with joy. There was also a wave of warm air surging out from the door, intoxicating like a spring breeze. The officials who had disappeared at some point were actually waiting for them in the door, their faces filled with shock. They did not understand how they had fallen behind, and they did not even know how they had arrived in this palace. Li Qingshan frowned even deeper. Although he did not think much of these people, they were still great cultivators. Yet, in this nine-tailed fox queen's Jasper Palace, they were toyed with in the palm of her hand. Fellow Taoist Li, it's too late to leave now. Zhuolong looked back at him with a mocking expression. Li Qingshan was about to retort when a large group of women surged out from the door. Sisters, the groom is here. Li Qingshan was stunned. These women were all peerless beauties, each with their own beauty and charm. Of course, he was not someone who had never seen women before, but this alone was not enough to make him lose his composure. However, these women were not humans, but demons. The number of female demons he had seen in his entire life couldn't compare to this one. Moreover, every one of them was a demon king, and many of them were at the peak of the third heavenly tribulation, similar to the golden cicada spirit king. When he thought of this, he remembered something strange. He did not seem to have seen many female demon kings in the 9 states, even in the towering sky city where demons used to gather. Logically speaking, the proportion of females in the demon race was much higher than that of human cultivators. Human females had many innate shortcomings compared to males. Their bodies were obviously much smaller, and they were at a disadvantage in the community. Furthermore, they were easily trapped by love and were more emotional than males, which was greatly detrimental to the cultivation of one's temperament. They were also subject to all kinds of moral restrictions. The demon race was not so particular. Even in a community where the males were dominant, the females often had a great advantage in terms of numbers, such as lions. And in many races, the females were even larger than the males, such as spiders. He had already seen the figure behind Helicoverpa rosa, but with her cultivation, it was not enough to pass through the group of powerful demon kings to get close to her. Strength was the clearest class in the demon race. The scene in front of him was as if all the demon kings in the world had appeared at the same time. In terms of power, it was probably comparable to the Great Xia dynasty. If that was all, it would be fine, as it was just a battle. However, these demon kings all rushed forward to help him, but left Zhuolong aside. He did not know what they were up to. Li Qingshan's body tensed up. Although he had absolute confidence in his own strength, it was not a joke to be joined by so many demon kings. However, when the hands touched his body, they did not have the intention to attack. Instead, they rubbed and pinched him, full of provocation. All of them laughed and scolded him, without any restraint of human women. In a moment, countless hands had passed between his legs. Even a lowly who looked only 7 or 8 years old squeezed and pinched him fiercely. He was a little numb. And there was nothing wrong with the groom's attire. It was just ordinary satin, so he did not resist and waited to see what tricks they had up their sleeves. This time, even Chua Long's expression froze, and he could no longer laugh. After a while, the groom was freshly dressed. Li Qingshan stood in the same place with his arms open. He still felt that today's encounter was unbelievable, but just by looking at Chua Long's expression he actually felt very happy. The female demons laughed and scattered to the side. Suddenly, a fist broke through the air and hit between his legs. Li Qingshan reached out and grabbed the lowly's pink fist. "Hey, just touch it. It hurts so much when you hit me like that." Although she looked like a little girl, she was at least a few 100 feet tall in her original form. Her fist could probably even collapse a mountain. The lowly rolled her eyes at him and obediently moved to the side. The Ministry of Rights official said, "You are mistaken. The one who came to propose is His Majesty." "That's right," the palace lord said that he is the groom. Shen Mengdai slowly walked out from the back hall. As for the great Xia Emperor, she seriously thought for a while. What dog is that? Chapter 1320. It's you, Clam King of Murish Sea, it's all you're doing. He pointed his halberd at Shen Mengdai. A golden light instantly pierced through Shen Mengdia's head. It was so sharp and dazzling that it seemed to be able to cut one's vision and cause blood to flow. Li Qingshan wanted to save her, but he was a step too late. Looking at the others, whether they were humans or demons, no one could react in time. The demoness's expressions changed drastically. If this finger was aimed at them, they might be in danger of dying on the spot. However, Shen Mengdia's body rippled as if it was not a real existence, but a reflection in the water. The hole in her head gradually healed, but her smile did not change. "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's you. Have you also come to congratulate this Taoist Li? I spared your life back then. It's fine if you are not grateful, but since you dare to come here to seek death, I'll send you on your way." Chua Long sneered and walked toward Shen Mengdai step by step. His eyes turned golden and locked onto Shen Mengdai. Shen Mengdia's rippling body froze, as if even the space she was in had been locked. "Taoist, today is my wedding day. This is not appropriate." Li Qingshan stood in front of Shen Mengdai. His imposing body was like a mountain, blocking the turtle dragon's aura from locking onto him and shouldering all of the pressure. He glanced backwards and curled his lips. "Nicely done. Li Qingshan. I'll give you another chance. Submit to me and I'll let bygones be bygones. I can even guide you to the human realm and make you a guest of the Myriad Phenomenon sect." Gui Long stopped. The only one who could force him to stop today was this unfathomable man in front of him. His attitude was still like that of a high and mighty king who wanted to summon a traitor. "Gui Long, you're still playing these little tricks at this point. Don't you think it's laughable?" Li Qingshan raised his head. His crimson eyes were like fire as he looked at Gui Long. A battle between experts was not just a battle of magic power or divine abilities, but also a clash of willpower. If he had even the slightest hope of avoiding this battle through summon, he immediately weakened. His chances of victory were greatly reduced. And now, with Shen Mengdia's help, his essence, qi, and spirit had become even stronger. Being cuckolded was always a little more pleasant than being cuckolded. "Why don't you wait a little longer? After you drink my wedding wine, we can compete again. I heard that fellow Taoist Su is the #1 beauty in the world. TTSK, I didn't expect that I would have such luck with women today. If you can wait, it won't be too late to fight after I've entered the bridal chamber and spent my honeymoon." "You're according to it." Chua Long squeezed out 3 words from between his teeth. He had never suffered such great humiliation before. His aura surged violently like a dragon soaring into the 9 heavens, roaring angrily. Regardless of whether it was the great cultivators or the monster monarch, all of them retreated repeatedly. They couldn't get within 10 steps of him, and they didn't even have the slightest thought of going against him. Li Qingshan's red hair flew backwards. His clothes fluttered in the wind, but he remained as still as a mountain. His body bent down slightly, like the prelude to a tiger pouncing on its prey. In an instant, a murderous aura filled the air. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A series of muffled sounds of thunder rang out, causing everyone in the palace to feel suffocated and about to vomit blood. However, it was only the collision of their auras. The great cultivators came to a sudden realization. This wasn't a battle they could interfere in. The only thing they could do was distract Li Qingshan a little and force Li Qingshan to attack them. Although victory and defeat could be decided by a hair's breadth, it was very likely that they would have to pay with their lives. At this moment, Shen Mengdai gracefully appeared from behind Li Qingshan. "Hey, you two, think about where you are. Where's Mi Rao? What did you do?" Chua Long vaguely felt that something was amiss today, but he was still concerned about the nine-tailed fox queen's safety. "Hey, hurry up and let my bride come out." Li Qingshan licked his lips, but he was determined to make Chua Long a cuckold. All right. Since you're all so anxious, then, the auspicious time has arrived." Shen Mengdai let out a loud cry. Flowers bloomed all around, filling the entire palace. They flew around in a dazzling and joyous manner. A bride wearing a phoenix coronet and red robes walked out from the back of the palace. With every step she took, the beaded curtains rippled and tassels fluttered. It was as if she was dancing, and every step she took made everyone's hearts tremble. Her head was draped with a large red veil, and her face could not be seen clearly. However, she exuded an indescribable charm that instantly attracted everyone's attention. She even directly resolved the imminent battle between Li Qingshan and Chua Long. This was because they could no longer focus all their attention on the powerful enemy in front of them. Even so, she still held an umbrella. The paratrooper leaned on her shoulder and spun it lightly in her hands. She even carried a kitten in her arms. If not for her attire, she did not look like she was here to get married, but rather like a well-bred daughter coming out for a walk. Li Qingshan immediately confirmed that this woman was the legendary nine-tailed fox queen. There was no one else who could display such charm. For a moment, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. Did she want to use him to test Chua Long, or did she really want to marry him? In any case, all of this was definitely not Chua Long's scheme. No man would use this kind of thing to scheme. Chua Long's strength did not need it. Who cares if it's real or fake? If it's fake, then I'll make it real. Hey! The kitten shouted in pleasant surprise and pounced at Li Qingshan. She transformed into a young girl in midair and tightly hugged Li Qingshan. "Xinyu." Li Qingshan hugged her waist and said with a smile, "Are you a servant girl accompanying me in marriage?" "I am your master." Xian Yu used a finger to fiercely poke his forehead. "Your master is about to become my wife," Li Qingshan said meaningfully. No matter what scheme there was, it was time to reveal it. "Mi Rao, what is going on? Are you joking? Isn't this joke going too far? It's truly difficult for me to accept." Chua Long frowned. His face was originally filled with anger and confusion, but in the end, it turned into a bitter smile. The woman reached under the veil and covered her mouth as she giggled. Li Qingshan's heart wavered. He felt his body become light. He almost could not resist taking off her veil to see what she looked like. "If I say that this is a joke, will you forgive me?" A moving voice floated out from under the red veil. It seemed to be composed of beautiful notes. Chua Long sighed. "How can I say no? I know that I have made you wait for a long time, which is why you are teasing me like this. Forget it. After I take care of this Li Qingshan, I will come and apologize to you." If he had not seen her with his own eyes, Li Qingshan would definitely think that Chua Long was a coward. At this moment, he could not help but understand. He felt that even he would not be much better. This woman was a monster. He could not help but be on guard against her and Chua Long. The woman sighed. "This is not a joke." Chua Long's body shook and his eyes widened. "What did you say? Don't tell me you've forgotten our agreement?" "What agreement? You said you would wait, yes, but the person I am waiting for is not you," Piao Tian said. Chapter 1321. Even through the red veil, Li Qingshan seemed to be able to see her innocent face. He even felt that she was incomparably cute, which made him wonder if there was something wrong with his head. As if struck by lightning, Chuo Long took a step back, his face full of disbelief. No, this is not true. Mi Rao, you must be joking with me. You blame me for being tainted by too many women. I promise you, from now on, I will only have you in my heart. Her expression was almost pleading, which made Li Qingshan feel a bit of pity. This scene was like begging the goddess not to break up, but the goddess said, "There is nothing between us, everything is just your illusion." It was simply a human tragedy, so tragic that he had no friends. So he laughed and thought, Chuolong, oh Chuolong, you also have this day. Is this nine-tailed fox queen serious or is she joking? If she is serious, then who is she waiting for? Could it be me? Although he knew that the nine-tailed fox queen had been waiting in this world for at least 5,000 years, that his ancestors were not even born at that time, and that he did not even know what the nine-tailed fox queen looked like, he could not help but feel a bit of anticipation. Even though he had already speculated that the reason why the nine-tailed fox queen did not ascend and stayed in 9 regions was most likely like Little and waiting for him in 9 regions, waiting for someone to return. And that person was not Chuolong, and of course, it was not him. Most likely she wanted to use him to completely dispel Chuolong's delusion. The nine-tailed fox queen said, Little Long, if I wanted to marry you, I would have married you 5,000 years ago. It is you who never understood. I am doing this for your own good. Marrying me will only bring you endless trouble. For my own good? Chuolong pretended to be calm, wanting to ridicule her, but his smile was more like a bitter smile. Yes, because you are not worthy of me. The nine-tailed fox queen said as if it was a matter of course, as if she was saying the obvious fact that the sun is round. What a ruthless strike! Li Qingshan shuddered. From his tailbone to the top of his skull. Even though he was watching from the side, he felt that it was incomparably dangerous. He did not expect to be able to hear such words with his own ears. Moreover, it was the moment when he had worked hard in Chuolong for many years, thinking that he had achieved success and fame, and was about to return home in glory. He had fallen from heaven to hell in an instant. It was simply filled with a tragic aura. He had exhausted all his means and methods, but the damage he had done to the Hui Dragon could not compare to this short sentence. Today's trip was truly worth it. Even if he had to be used as a prop and pretend to be the groom, it was still incomparably delightful. At this moment, he was filled with good feelings towards the nine-tailed fox empress. She was indeed noble, beautiful, and powerful. Chuolong's expression changed drastically. I'm not good enough for you? The Minister of Rites couldn't help but shout, Fellow Taoist Su. What nonsense are you talking about? Our emperor is the ruler of the world. He has gone through 5 heavenly tribulations and cultivated the yang spirit. He is known as the human emperor. As for you, you're just a little demon king. I think you're the one who's not worthy of our emperor. The ministers who came with Chuolong to escort the bride all felt extremely humiliated. They simply didn't dare to imagine Chuolong's current feelings. Was the nine-tailed fox empress crazy? The nine-tailed fox empress ignored the others and said earnestly, Xiaolong, you've stayed in the human realm for so many years. Calm down and think about it. Do you have the right to marry me just because you've cultivated the yang spirit and become the human emperor? Even Li Qingshan couldn't bear to hear it. This was simply adding insult to injury. He couldn't help but clench his fists and prepare to fight. If he was in Chuolong's position, he would definitely fly into a rage out of humiliation and kill everyone present. However, to his surprise, Chuolong fell silent for a moment and actually calmed down. He let out a long sigh and said, Yes, you're right. A mere human emperor isn't qualified. I'm afraid only a perfected immortal is qualified to have you. That's why you're worried that you'll harm me, so you're unwilling to accept my proposal. You're unwilling to follow me to the human realm and want to use this cruel method to end things with me. However, I can't let you wait here any longer, and I definitely won't give up on you. I just have to make you cover up your appearance. One day, I'll become a human immortal, or even a perfected immortal, and you'll be able to openly accompany me." Li Qingshan immediately revealed a strange expression. This Chuolong was really sick. What did he mean by, "Only a perfected immortal is qualified to have you"? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. However, could it really be, as Chuolong said, that the nine-tailed fox empress was actually thinking about him, which was why she made such a bad plan? However, just thinking about it made him feel annoyed, as if he was being shown affection. What he didn't know was that although Chuolong's words were emotional and exaggerated, they were not empty words. The nine-tailed fox clan was born with endless charm and was favored by all living beings. No matter where they went, they would inevitably be fought over. The Su clan was the most charming of the nine-tailed foxes. She was a femme fatale, devastatingly beautiful, and had once caused immortals to fall. And this nine-tailed fox empress, Su Minrao, was specially selected from the Su clan of the country of Green Hill. Otherwise, Chuolong wouldn't have lost his composure like this, and Li Qingshan's mind wouldn't have been shaken. After all, they were not newbies who had never seen the world or seen women. In terms of lifespan alone, they had experienced many vicissitudes of life. "I'm sorry, but the person I've been waiting for has already arrived." Just as Chuolong was about to express his sincerity, the nine-tailed fox empress words severed all his illusions. Chuolong roared, "I don't believe you. Tell me, who is that person? So far away, yet so close. Isn't it him?" The nine-tailed fox empress lightly grabbed Li Qingshan's sleeve with her slender hands, her voice seemingly containing a hint of bashfulness and sweetness. Happiness came too suddenly. Li Qingshan was intoxicated, almost suspecting that he was dreaming, or that he had already fallen into an illusion created by the nine-tailed fox empress, and that everything he saw and felt was fake. However, he had already confirmed a long time ago that everything before him was not an illusion. Theoretically speaking, an illusion like this was impossible. No matter how great the nine-tailed fox empress' hidden strength was, no matter how special her bloodline was, there was a limit to the power of the techniques she could cast in the world of the 9 provinces. Chuolong had to rely on the will of the heavens and the 9 cauldrons of the human emperor to break through this limit. Even with that being the case, she still treated Li Qingshan as a great enemy, so how could she toy with him like this? If it's not an illusion, then am I really the person she's waiting for? Li Qingshan bit the tip of his tongue viciously and powered the spirit turtle's method of sea suppression, doing his best to maintain his clarity. No, I can't believe her so easily. Even if all of this isn't an illusion, it might just be a lie from this vixen so that we can have a vicious battle. But if I win, I definitely won't spare her. However, there was one person who refused to believe it even more than him. Chuolong said furiously, "You're lying to me. He didn't exist 5,000 years ago. Even if he's reincarnated, it's enough for him to reincarnate over 100 times. How did you know he was born here? If he's really the person you're waiting for, why didn't you meet him earlier? Why did you have to wait until today to say it? Sumi Rao, what do you want?" The nine-tailed fox queen shook her head slightly. "All of this is the arrangement of the king. What can I do?" "How is this possible?" Chuolong was shocked. The king of the Green Hill Kingdom must be a demonic immortal without a doubt. He must have gone through at least 7 heavenly tribulations. He never thought that there would be such a person participating in this tiny world of the 9 provinces. Although he just now said that he wanted to become a human immortal, then a true immortal, and let her stay by his side openly, he knew how difficult the process was and how slim the chance of success was. On the path of cultivation, the higher one went, the more difficult it would be. There were 3,000 worlds and countless living beings, but only a few could become immortals. In the entire myriad phenomenon sect, there was only one true immortal in 1,000,000 years. That was 1,000,000 years in the human realm. In this process, countless stars were born and worlds were destroyed. Human emperors like him were like carps in a river, innumerable. Which one of them wasn't an amazing talent? But in the end, it was difficult for them to jump out of the 6 paths of reincarnation. True immortals jumped out of the 6 paths of reincarnation and were not part of the 5 elements. They existed with heaven and earth and shone with the sun and the moon. The gap between him and a human emperor was even bigger than the gap between him and a mortal. As for those great cultivators and the demon queen, they hadn't even stepped through the door of immortal ascension, so they couldn't quite understand the shock in Chualong's heart. Li Qingshan slightly frowned and fell into deep thought. In this way, everything made sense. A peerless nine-tailed fox would only waste 5,000 years in the 9 provinces because of the order of a superior, not because of some infatuation. The king placed me in this world and told me to wait for a fated person here. He said that I don't need to look for that person and that one day he will come to me by himself. He told me to marry him and be his good wife, to help him realize his wish and go above the 9 heavens. Li Qingshan suddenly raised his eyebrows and his red eyes were like fire. Above the 9 heavens, these 4 words had been absent for a long time. Chapter 1322. P.S. Read the exclusive story behind The Legend of the Great Sage and listen to more of your suggestions for the novel. Follow the official account, WeChat, add friends, add official account, typed Xiaosheo, and tell me secretly. Outside the palace, snow filled the sky, and the coldness was bone-piercing. Inside the palace, thousands of flowers bloomed, and the fragrance filled the air. It was a completely different world. Qingshan, I've specially come to receive you. I've waited for thousands of years for you. You're the chosen one, and I'll become your wife. Once we leave this world, I'll tell you how to go beyond the 9 heavens. The 9-tailed fox empress murmured softly, as if she was dreaming. Li Qingshan's breathing quickened slightly. He stared at the 9-tailed fox empress, and his pupils dilated slightly. Clouds swirled in his eyes. On Crouching Bull Hill, Oxen had taught him to drink wine, eat meat, and kill people. He'd taught him great abilities to pluck the stars and moon, and move mountains and fill seas. All his pursuits, all his dreams, all pointed to beyond the 9 heavens. These words were like a curse. From the moment they appeared, they had been imprinted in his fate. Indomitable spirit, unregretful even in death. It was the deepest obsession in his heart. Unknowingly, the spirit turtle could no longer suppress the fluctuations in his heart. He could not help but extend his hand towards the 9-tailed fox empress, wanting to remove her veil. Under the red veil, the 9-tailed fox empress' lips curled into a smile, causing the entire Jasper Palace to brighten. She displayed the so-called charm to the extreme. The palace was enshrouded in a strange fragrance that was faintly discernible. Wondrous music flowed intermittently. The combination of the two was intoxicating, but it was not real fragrance and music. Instead, it was a feeling from the heart. This illusory feeling was more real than any smell or sound. Xianyue said with an intoxicated expression, "Big Black, I've said it before. The Fox Empress is beautiful, noble, and powerful. You're finally willing to believe me now, right?" Helicoverpa Rosa bit her lip. She had only entered Jasper Palace recently, and she was cruel and heartless by nature, so she had not been charmed that deeply. She felt rather complicated. This man had used violence to conquer her. The man who had made her give birth to a child was gradually falling under the charm of another woman. What was even more tragic was that she was in the same situation. The 9-tailed fox empress had long since stopped restricting her freedom, but she had lost the will to leave this place. She could only watch as she continued to drown. It was as if the prey that had fallen into her spider web had been wrapped tightly by the spider's silk and injected with poison. Everything began to melt. Gailong's face was ashen. His aura continued to weaken, and he fell into chaos. They watched as Li Qingshan lifted the bride's veil, but they couldn't even move a finger. They felt that everything was meaningless and had become a sad joke, an ugly farce. For a moment, the two of them were burning with inner demons. Your Majesty, are you all right?" The call seemed to be coming from a great distance, and many faces were wandering around. They were all filled with contempt and mockery. His body twisted and warped, flickering as if he would collapse at any moment. The 2 men who dominated the 9 regions felt like ice and fire in their hearts. One rose to the 9th heaven, while the other fell into the abyss. But in the eyes of others, it was as if they were possessed. Being toyed with by a woman, they couldn't help themselves. On the icy peak, Little and suddenly said, "It's too quiet." Gu Yenying said, "Yes. Just now, Gui Long's aura was like that of a dragon." They thought that there would be a huge battle, but for some reason, it suddenly became quiet again. Logically speaking, when two beasts were stuffed into a cage, after a short standoff, it would immediately be a fierce battle. But now, there was no movement at all. It was extremely strange. They can't really be drinking at a wedding, right? Maybe they've been charmed by that vixen, Luo Ho Xiaoming said meaningfully as he played with the wine in his cup. "I'll go take a look." Little and gripped the hilt of his sword and was about to attack Jadeite Palace. What for? If he doesn't even have the ability to fight, then let's disband. Luo Ho Xiaoming raised his head disapprovingly and drank the ice in his cup. Gu Yenying smiled. "I agree. But there's probably something wrong. That nine-tailed fox empress is only a demon king. No matter how scheming she is, it's impossible for her to control Qin Shan in a single exchange. That's too inconceivable." Luo Ho Xiaoming countered with a question, "Is she really only a demon king?" Gu Yenying paused for a moment, a thoughtful expression on her face. Little and had already flown through the air, soundlessly landing in front of Jadeite Palace. He cut open the palace gates with a single slash of his sword and flew over the threshold, only to find a desolate snowy plain in front of him. The entire Jadeite Palace had disappeared. At the same time, Li Qingshan took off the red veil. In that instant, an invisible power grabbed the hearts of everyone present. The demon kings were all intoxicated, and even the great cultivators were dazedly rooted to the spot, staring at her in a daze, forgetting everything around them. Only Chuolong seemed to have been struck by lightning. He spat out a mouthful of blood and turned into golden mist in midair, his aura becoming even more chaotic. However, she only had eyes for Li Qingshan. Her jade-like fox eyes seemed to be able to see the depths of the yellow springs, drawing in his mind. A red thread suddenly appeared on Li Qingshan's pinky, tightened, and snapped. That was the yearning red thread stained by begonia. He had once let go of his mind to let the red thread wrap around him, but it had been forcefully broken. Li Qingshan felt a pain in his heart. He blinked as if he was trying to wake up. Sumi Rao grabbed his hand and called out, "Lang Jun." Li Qingshan's eyes became dazed again. Suddenly, a butterfly flew in front of him, glowing with a dreamy radiance, instantly obscuring Sumi Rao's face. Shen Mengdai smiled. "Li Qingshan, oh Li Qingshan, you still haven't woken up from your dream." "Xiao Dai, what are you doing?" Sumi Rao said plainly, reaching out to grab the butterfly flying in the air. Shen Mengdai seemed to have expected this and dodged it. Hee, it's more interesting to dream when it's strange. And he's the main character. What nonsense are you talking about? Sumi Rao frowned. This woman was sick in the head back then. She couldn't control her with charm, so she specially set up a trap to deal with her. She had been trapped by her problem for thousands of years, yet she didn't die from chi deviation. Instead, she became even crazier. It was really unexpected. Sumi Rao, do you think everything will go as you wish? But you don't know that in this world, the main character is the most powerful. Of course I'll follow him. What future do I have with you? Shen Mengdai declared righteously. A red figure flashed. Sumi Rao arrived, her robe fluttering and tassels fluttering. Her hands turned into countless afterimages like blooming flowers, trapping the butterfly within. Shen Mengdai spun and flew, transforming into countless butterflies, passing through Sumi Rao's fingers from unimaginable angles. Thousands of flowers bloomed, thousands of butterflies danced. One advanced, one retreated, one chased, one fled, their clothes fluttered. They didn't look like demonesses, they were clearly heavenly ladies descending to the mortal world. They fought in the narrow space, not a single trace of chi leaked out, nor did they cause any damage, as if they were in perfect coordination with each other in a graceful dance. It had a dreamy beauty to it. In a daze, it was as if a beautiful white fox was pouncing on a butterfly. The fox's steps were light, the butterfly's dance attracted everyone's attention, Even Chuolong was dazed. He had never seen such a dance in the mortal realm. Umph. Su Mi Rao snorted. She was truly angry. A snow-white fox tail suddenly emerged from her dress, slapping the butterfly flying in the air. Could it be you're the main character? So miserable. I don't want to live in the female main character's world. It's too crazy. This is a great event. I'm waiting for you to get a cool phone. Follow/Chinese official account, add friends on WeChat, add official account, entered Xiaoshuo. Participate immediately. Everyone will get prizes. Followed Xiaoshuo's official account now. Floating astronomy. P.S. Sorry for making everyone wait for so long. Writing to this stage will be a huge test for me. I can't be careless. Recently, I've been reading novels diligently. I've almost reached the point where I've lost my mind. It's also one of the main reasons I haven't updated. It's all about turning the accumulation of the past few years into the most exciting story, to bring the second half of the legend of the great sage to a higher level. It's almost like I'm thinking of a new book, but it doesn't have the passion of a new book. The difficulty is self-evident. For this goal, I've almost abandoned everything else. I don't want money, I don't want love, I don't want to socialize. I live like an ascetic monk, just to do my best and break through my limits. As for how far I can go, I can't be sure. 10 years of facing the wall, it's hard to be a hero. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.